Susan, you're ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Welcome, everyone. It's World Migratory Bird Day, and we're so excited to have everyone back for our third virtual Bird Day Live. Thanks for joining us today, tomorrow, Saturday. We have an incredible suite of presenters and activities and programming for you, bringing together scientists, researchers, and educators from across the Western Hemisphere and even across the globe. But what we want to do to start today off is to introduce you to our team, because they're the ones who make it happen. World Migratory Bird Day doesn't happen with just a single effort. It happens with a group of people who work together all year long to make the event come together, to put together the pieces that bring the illustration, the art, the passion, and our love for migratory birds from us to you and to our partners and communities everywhere. I want to introduce these partners today, and I'm going to start with Florian Kyle, who is our partner from the United Nations Environment Program, the Convention on Migratory Species, and the African Eurasian Water Bird Agreement. Florian, we're now into our third year, is that right, of an agreement between Environment for the Americas and these partnerships. And this is what makes World Migratory Bird Day happen, not just in the Americas where we coordinate the program, but indeed across all the flyways. And I wanted to see if you could share a little bit of your work, and thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, great to be part of this launch of Bird Day Live. Yeah, exciting. It's the third year of our partnership. We've been working together before that already, but intensively since we've started this global partnership agreement. So as the Convention on Migratory Species and the African Eurasian Water Bird Agreement, we basically organize World Migratory Bird Day since 2006. And as many people know, there was International Migratory Bird Day in the Western Hemisphere, but we managed to unite the two initiatives 3 years ago. And it's been fantastic. It's amazing to see all the work that is being done, especially in the Americas Flyway, led by Susan and her team. It's a real motor of flyway education and flyway conservation for World Migratory Bird Day. So the things and the materials that are being produced in the Americas are actually, and especially this year, also being made available to many other places around the world, to countries and organizers through the artwork and the products that are being done in the Americas. So it's an exciting period. We're seeing more and more activity. World Migratory Bird Day is growing every year. As someone who's been there since 2006 and has been organizing World Migratory Bird Day every year. Every year a different theme, and every year, new surprises and new things coming up, and great corporations this year. We have exciting developments when it comes to the Global Big Day, getting birders also united in the big umbrella of World Migratory Bird Day, but also new corporations with the Dawn Chorus project. It's, something to check out and look at in the coming days, but also the whole month of May, where you can actually record bird song wherever you are and contribute the recording to science, and also do some art with it, which is quite exciting. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. Exciting as always for us as the UN, conventions and the UN treaties that are administered by the United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi, but we're based in Bonn, Germany. So we're always working with Susan's team across the Atlantic with a time difference of 6 or 7 hours. It's often an advantage, I would say. We can pass things on, and then one goes to bed and the other one wakes up. But it's a good relationship, and we're making it work despite the distance and despite being in different organizations and wearing different hats. So just want to thank everyone, especially our artist, who we'll hear about soon, who's done a fantastic job in really bringing an energy and a creativity to this year's World Migratory Bird Day. Unfortunately, many people are still in a situation we were hoping we would be out. The The pandemic is still there in many countries. In some countries, there's a lifting thanks to vaccinations, but generally, the birds are giving us hope and some comfort in this difficult period. So with that, I'll hand over back to Susan.
Thank you, Florian. It's great to have you here for this launch of World Migratory Bird Day. There are indeed a lot of activities that people can get involved with, but I want to introduce Sarah Woolman. Sarah is our 2021 artist. And for those of you who are familiar with World Migratory Bird Day, each year we have a new artist who creates the piece that will illustrate our theme. And this year our theme is Sing, Fly, Soar Like a Bird. Sarah.
Hi, I'm so honored to be this year's World Migratory Bird Day artist. It's been an awesome experience, particularly being able to talk and meet and connect with so many people all over the world in a time where we're pretty limited worldwide because of COVID. I want to talk a little bit about the art that I created for this year's World Migratory Bird Day. I am a graphic artist and illustrator, so I drew these digitally. But what I really like to do with my art is kind of emulate the colors within nature already. So I'm already highlighting what's just there. So, you know, as much as I'd love to take credit for the artwork that I produced, really it's just nature. So I actually use the real color of the bird in every graphic that I design. So they are inherently that color. And it's so nice to be able to do this digitally too, because it's just so accessible. I'm able to use it in so many different forms and ways all over the country and the world. So it's been a really, really amazing experience to be able to deep dive into this and meet so many wonderful people. What I do is I'm actually from Alaska. It's where I am coming at you from right now, and I work for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service for Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and we are coordinating with Environment for the Americas for World Migratory Bird Day, and kind of doing a big push to remind people that, you know, we can still go outdoors and that birds just connect us from all over the world. And something I always like to say is that, you know, when you look outside and you see that bird outside your window, think about how many other people have seen that bird, how far that bird has traveled. And I think that really brings us together. And I'll let you go, Susan.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you. We can't say how much we appreciate your work. Virtually doesn't do it, but I just want to express our sincere and deep gratitude for the beautiful piece that you put together. I'm going to turn it over now to Miguel Mata. Miguel is our leader in Latin America and with the Caribbean. He works with our coordinators in each of the regions, bringing together all of our partners there. And what a tremendous growth we've seen since he came on board, and since these people who are coordinating in their regions have stepped in to help promote World Migratory Bird Day, raise awareness of migratory birds and their conservation. So Miguel.
Thank you so much, Susan. Welcome everybody for World Migratory Bird Day 2021. Sing, Fly, Soar Like a Bird is our new conservation team. And this team is very special for us. It's an invitation to back to nature. It's an invitation back to see the birds in our backyards, in our national parks. We really appreciate all the effort that people are doing in the ground, from Alaska to Argentina, but especially in Latin American and Caribbean countries. We have a special connection with people on the ground. And I really, really want to say thank you for everybody. This program today is just made for you. We are very excited to share all the activities for the next coming three days. And I want to introduce the rest of the team of World Migratory Bird Day in Latin America and the Caribbean. They are all women. That is very great. They are so passionate leaders in conservation in their regions too. So I want to introduce first our Mexican coordinator, Daniela Sosa, then our Central American coordinator, Leticia Andino, our Caribbean coordinator, Laura Babula. Of course, everybody in South American country can contact me to coordinate new sport in your communities. Thank you so much for enjoy World Migratory Birthday and New Year, and happy birthday, everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniela Souza. As Miguel says, I'm the Mexican coordinator, and I'm really, really happy of this birthday live. I'm excited, and thank you very much. Hope you enjoy all the activities. And later we will have a little tour by the Museo de las Aves of Mexico. Hope you can join us. And well, I'm here for everyone in Mexico who wants to celebrate World Migratory Birthday. Please let me know, and I will help you in everything I can. And happy World Migratory Birthday.
And we'll pass to Leticia.
Hi, hello everyone. I am Leticia Andino. I am the coordinator for Central America, and I'm glad to be here. And welcome to the World Migratory Birthday Live, which is a great virtual event with full of surprises and many interesting things. So I hope you enjoyed it and join us to see this great event. And if you want to celebrate World Migratory Birthday in Central American region, you're welcome to do it. You can contact me to me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. And we'll end with Lara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Babulal. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean. And I'm really, really excited to have you all celebrate World Migratory Birthday with us. And we have so many activities. And one of the activities I'll be doing tomorrow is Zumba like a bird. So come out, put on some shoes, some comfortable clothes, get some water, and we're going to have a fun time. So if you're interested in celebrating World Migratory Birthday with me in the Caribbean, just reach out, and happy World Migratory Birthday. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to bring everybody together to wish you a happy World Migratory Birthday in 3, 2, and 1. Happy World Migratory Birthday. Thank you, everyone. And now we'll move to our video, which was created by Sarah Woolman. So thank you so much, Sarah, for creating this video that has really served as a launch to World Migratory Birthday.
Of course.
Art and nature are synonymous to me. I find a relationship with the environment to be the highest form of self-expression. There's a mastery of design within nature, little nuances of patterns and relationships in every leaf and feather. Letting nature's design into our daily lives fosters our deep relationship with the world. I've been an artist as far back as I can remember. Perhaps growing up in landscapes of tall buildings and gray infrastructure gave me the ability to appreciate the contrast of the organic colors and shapes that nature provides. The constant in this giant cityscape that gave me a look into a wilder world of inspiration were the birds that made it their home. As years passed, my appreciation for birds and their freedom of expression grew. When I began working for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service in Alaska, I wanted to highlight the connection of birds and art. Birds in Alaska mean so much. We depend on them. They provide us food, company, and are telltale signs of change. We welcome the birds every year with the spring and bid them farewell as the darkness approaches. These are the stories I spoke of when I taught about birds to school children in Bush, Alaska. Birds are a universal language. They connect us. People and places tucked away in these sacred corners of the world understand birds in a way that we should all strive for. Every single one of us has a story of our personal experience with birds to share. To be able to channel that onto paper through artistic mediums really gives tangible meaning to that connection. It provides us all a space to celebrate these birds. I currently work for Arctic National Wildlife Refuge as a visual information specialist. I work to bring the beauty of this place to the rest of the world. Birds at Arctic Refuge are so incredibly important. It's home to over 200 bird species who fly here specifically to breed. They come thousands of miles to this special place, bringing with them the connection from every place they touch. They truly have a freedom in flying to the ends of the earth and back every year. Claude Monet once said, "I would like to paint the way a bird sings." Now I would like to paint not only how birds sing, but how birds fly and how birds bring us together. I want everyone to stop and look at those birds right outside your window. Think about their journey and what other people have observed that very same bird. That bird represents so much that connects us. Their freedom in flight and their beauty in song are things we have always craned our necks to observe from the dawn of humanity. Join me in celebrating World Migratory Bird Day 2021 to sing, fly, and soar like a bird and experience the true freedom, beauty, and design in these wild creatures that bring us all together.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. And with that, we are going to launch into our 3 days of presentations. We have an incredibly special one for you now. If you're watching on Facebook or any of the Facebook pages to which we're live streaming, I want to invite you to also go to birddaylive.com. And on birddaylive.com, there will be Spanish translation where you can tune into that directly. And when we have speakers in Spanish, you'll also find English translation. I want to highlight and give a big thanks to our 2 translators, Claudia and Edmundo. I know this is a difficult job, and I encourage our speakers to speak slowly for them. So thank you very much again to our team from across the Americas and indeed around the world for making World Migratory Bird Day possible. I'm going to bring on now our next speakers. And I think they're in the room already, Dr. Wolfgang Fiedler and Dr. Ryan Pavlik. Great, thank you, Dr. Fiedler. It's so nice to meet you today. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to learn about how work from space can help inform conservation on the ground. And I'm going to, Dr. Wolfgang Fiedler is with the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology. He's been interested in the phonology of bird movements, and as well as many other topics related to migratory birds. Wolfgang, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this. Do you see my screen?
I do.
Okay, good. Okay, then I can start right away. So I'm not far away from Bonn, at least from that perspective, it looks like. So best wishes from Germany on a very, very rainy day today, but it still can improve. I would like to talk a bit about animal tracking and the possibilities we have and the dreams we have. And of course, we will focus on birds because that's Bird Day today. And my favorite group of animals are also birds. First, a more general thing. What is animal tracking? First of all, it's a method to observe animals. The tag we put on the animal to recognize it can be a bird band or another mark, or in recent times, it's quite often an electronic device. And an electronic device like a radio tag or whatever, it gives us 4 typical informations. It tells us who is where and when. So we have a timestamp, we have a pair of coordinates. We usually know which individual we have in front of us because the logos are individualized. And with new sensors, we can also see who is doing what. So we get a bit of information about the behavior. The background we need to do that is, first of all, something on the animal. So in this talk, I'm concentrating on electronic devices like GPS loggers or radio transmitters or things like that. Then we need something that receives the signal from the animal. And finally, we need something where we can store the data and ideally store it in a way that future generations and other scientists or the public can understand it So we need a common language, how we transfer information about tracking. This is important because we shouldn't forget that each animal carries a burden for us if we put a device on it. So we have the obligation to get the maximum out of that burden that the animal carries for us. And that means the data shall not vanish somewhere in a desk drawer, but it shall be available for everyone and every purpose that is for the benefit of the animals. The first and very maybe most popular type of of tracking animals is radio tracking. So you put something on an animal, and this radio on the animal, it can be quite tiny, as you see on the top left side. This is much less than a gram carried by a bumblebee. So this thing does nothing else but sending a radio ping, so a short signal by radio. And if you have an appropriate antenna that gives you a direction, you can find out the direction where that animal is. And then you can either move around and try to find it from different angles, or you put your antenna on a plane or on a car, or you build up an automatic system where the antenna looks more or less 24/7 where the animal is. And this gives you the information who is where and at what time. And a bit of information is also given what the animal is doing at that time. So that's probably the most popular thing. You can imagine you need a lot of manpower to do that, because sooner or later there's always someone needed who follows the animal more or less closely and see and observes what it is doing. Then the next idea was, well, why shouldn't any machines follow these animals? Pioneered of the pioneers of the first steps of that was for sure the Argos system and CLS. In this system, there's still a radio signal coming from the device on the animal, or from a buoy or a ship or whatever, but in our case from an animal. And this radio signal now is received by a satellite that is circular, or many satellites circulating around the Earth. And from the strength of the signal and how it changes while the satellite is moving, they can calculate more or less where the signal comes from, which means they can track the position of the device that should be on an animal. This is not too accurate, but if you need to know where your bird, for instance, stays for winter, whether it's in Northern or Central Africa, this is a very suitable method. And you can follow the animals to places where it's difficult to follow them by, let's say, terrestrial radio tracking. As you see on the right side, in the beginning, those devices were fairly large, and you could only use it on the largest birds that were around. Meanwhile, we have very tiny things like this 5-gram transmitter that can be used on rather tiny animals, and it opens many possibilities to follow these birds around the globe. Now, increasing accuracy was the next dream, and this ideally should be done through the logger, who is directly calculating the position. And this can now easily be done with this global position system, GPS, that we have, or GLONASS, or whatever else is currently being under development. Which means the logger itself finds out where it is, logs the data and the timestamp, and then somehow this data on the logger needs to come to the researcher. In this case of the racing pigeon or of an albatross that returns again and again to its breeding site, it's quite easy. You can trap the bird again and take off the logger and then read out the data. In other cases, it's more difficult because it's not that easy to trap a bird more than once in its life. And if you don't get back your device, you don't get the data. So that's a bit of a problem and a limitation in that system. On the other hand, the devices now can be extremely small, as you see on the bottom right side. Those are the pinpoint tags. They can collect 50 or 10 or another limited number of coordinates, for instance, during the winter. And after the bird has returned to the breeding site, you can trap it again, get off the logger, and then read out the data. That's already pretty smart and pretty accurate. You are a bit limited in these very tiny devices by the number of GPS points you can get, but nevertheless, you get an idea where these birds, for instance, spend the winter and how they get there. Of course, it would be better if you don't need to get back the bird into your hand. And that's the idea of all these GPS loggers that collect the data on board and then send the data packages through the mobile phone network. We have almost everywhere on Earth, meanwhile, mobile phone network. As you see in that map, everything that's brown and yellow is covered by mobile phone. And these loggers collect the data over a certain time, and then if they find the connection, they send the data. You see, if you're working in Greenland or in Canada, you have some limitations, obviously, but for many other regions of the Earth, it's quite possible that you have once or several times a day your mobile phone connection with the logger. You cannot even not only get the data, but you can also tell the logger, for instance, to change its sampling scheme. For instance, when the bird comes into a very interesting area or something like that. So this is currently probably the most advanced thing we have in this GPS device world. We cannot, currently we cannot have a constant real-time tracking of animals because this needs a terrible lot of energy, and we are in almost all animals and definitely in all birds, we are limited in the size of the device that we can add to the bird, which means we have also a limited area, for instance, for a solar panel, as you see on the top left, and the battery size is limited. So we need to really have good regimes, what to do with the power. Also, GPS measuring needs quite a lot of power. So what these things usually can do, collecting data in quite high rates, but then only send once or twice a day these data packages to the scientists. Here's an example from the white stork. Each line is a white stork track that we collected over the last 10 years or so. That's about 400 individuals. It's covering most of the area where white storks come from. They breed in the north and they migrate to the south Mediterranean or to Africa, as you see here. And where this red arrow is on the stork's back, that is the position where this GPS logger is like, it's a bit like a backpack. It's a harness that fixes the logger at that position, and ideally the stork gets it in the nest in the first days, in the first weeks of life, and then carries it for the rest of the life, and we can follow this stork all through its life. And then if we do that with many different species and many individuals, we get a very first idea about the incredible movements that we see on Earth each day, more or less. So these different colors are different species, and each dot is a moving individual. It's not all of them birds. I think there are a few mammals also there, but it gives an idea what really happens on Earth in terms of migration. So nothing is static. Everything is almost always on the move. If you see these green dots in the northwest of America, now they might be in breeding time, but soon they will start moving again. Now it's October on that picture. You see they move again. So that is what's really happening on Earth. So we somehow know that, but it's very amazing to see it. And this is a very, very tiny fraction of the things that are really happening on Earth, because those are only the animals that have been tracked so far and fed into the MoveBank database, where I come back to in a minute. We have now quite high spatial and temporal resolutions. So here that's all the GPS points that the stork gave us through one breeding season. So we can see exactly the field where this stork was foraging, for instance. We can somehow try to follow, for instance, that stork that is just doing the transition between France and Spain, so crossing the Pyrenees on the easternmost edge, close to the Mediterranean. So we feel a bit like a traveling bird, which is absolutely amazing. And we also get now, almost as a standard, this acceleration data. On the top right, you see that stalk with the arrows on the back. So the logger also registers the movements back and forth to the sides and up and down. And this results in the lines you see below. And from these lines that indicate how the logger was moved on the bird, so in the end, how the bird moved, we can, for instance, instantly see whether it was flying with flapping wings or gliding, or whether it was resting or walking around. And if we use a bit of machine learning, we can also identify phases, for instance, where the bird tried to trap locusts or whatever it was feeding on. So those are a few minutes over a day. And here is a few days in a month. And you see also, we can instantly see when something is wrong with the bird. Here we can instantly see where it died, for instance, which is a sad but very important information if you want to understand the life of the animals. Then there's the idea of Icarus, which is for the first time a system that is really designed from the scratch, especially for tracking animals. So all other systems are based more or less on technologies that are designed for other things, and then people started to adapt it to follow animals. But this Icarus thing, so the International Cooperation for Animal Research using space, here the idea is that animals carry very small loggers, currently 5 grams. The dream is going below 1 gram for such a logger. And they send the data either to the currently to the International Space Station, where is a receiving unit on it, or to a handheld base station, which can be brought close to the area where these animals live, if that's known, or it's planned to also have these receiving units on other types of satellites. And there's an interesting partnership ahead, I think, to NASA and JPL, and this exactly perfectly refers to the next talk by Ryan, but I have a few minutes left. So what's planned with this data? They sooner or later come to an operations center, and from there to the community, which is scientists or the public, and the data directly goes into a database. That's the general idea. First tracks are now coming in. The system started a few weeks ago, finally. And the head behind it and the man with the big dreams, that's our director, Martin Wikelski. You see him on the bottom right side. So it's his dream to follow as many animals around the globe as possible to understand how these connections between different areas function, where the animals have problems, how they can be protected. And in the end, it's a big deal of understanding how life on Earth really is functioning. There are more tools. For instance, we have these geolocators. That's more or less a sunlight logger. And if you know when the sun, when there's sunset and when there's sunrise, you can calculate where on Earth you are, at least with an accuracy of some 100 kilometers, and on most days of the year. These things are more tiny than most GPS loggers, so you can use them on extremely small birds like this European swift here. So it's more or less the size of a swallow. These loggers need to be retrieved after a year, so you can use it, for instance, on breeding bird, where you can predict where they will return after their migration. Then there's, of course, the dream of putting cameras on animals. This has been done a lot. In this case, it's an eagle flying in the Alps. So these devices collect a huge amount of data, and currently it's, first of all, it can only be big animals carrying those cameras. And second, you always need the device back to read out the data and get pictures like that one. It's amazing, but it's a very limited thing, and it's really an impact on the animal. So you need big animals that are happy to cooperate, like this tame eagle here. And I think it's not in sight that we can use that on a big scale, for instance, on wild living small birds. Other sensors we have, gyrometers, magnetometers, they can tell us exactly the position of the bird in the air, which is interesting when we want to understand their flight and their flight maneuvers and how much it costs to fly and things like that. We have air pressure sensors, we have diving depth sensors. We can follow, for instance, penguins and see how deep they dive in what area of the sea. Salinity of the water can be measured. We have a lot of weather variables that are also measured by the loggers. We now even have loggers that can collect information about air pollution and much more. So all these things are getting tinier and tinier and less energy consuming, and therefore they are now becoming to be interesting to understand more of our rather small animals like birds usually are. Then the data needs to go somewhere, and the idea is to have one central place where all tracking data can be dumped. So the owner of that data can decide whether it is visible or whether it is, at least for the first years or so, not visible because he or she wants to exclusively publish the data first, or because the data is very sensitive, showing locations of very rare and highly endangered individuals or whatever. So in principle, the data could be in that database, and this means it's conserved for the future and it's not lost if the scientist for some reason does not continue or is not able to continue his or her work. So that's the idea, and all the studies are stored in the same data format, which means the data can be understood also, hopefully in a few decades or by completely different persons from the other end of the world. If you go to MoveBank, the link is on the top left. You see a map, like first you see a great animation that you definitely have to see, and then you can click on map and you see this picture. And this means every dot that is green is a project where you can directly see tracks from animals. The gray dots show projects where you can see the dots or the movements after you contacted the study owner and he or she agreed to show you. But the green dots contain data that can directly be seen by the public. There's everything from white sharks to sea turtles, to lions, to storks, to blackbirds, to eagles. So that's really fun, and you can spend nights just by checking what animal currently does what on the earth. It's a huge database. It's not too simple to extract the information you want, and you need quite a fast internet connection. Therefore, we have the Animal Tracker app. This is an app that is also looking into the MoveBank data, but it helps you to get a more easy access to the data. So if you want to install the Animal Tracker app in either of the two big operating systems, you can do that for free. And you can follow birds either around that are in your vicinity, or you can pick a favorite animal that you want to follow over the next month or whatever. And you can also observe, report observations of tracked animals. I will come to that a bit later, because this is something where we hope that everyone joins the Animal Tracker project. But first of all, that's also a possibility just to see moving animals and to see the tracks of animals. Now, why do we track animals? Of course, from my perspective as a scientist, the first thing is we want to understand how animals live, and therefore it's ideal to follow them through their life, or at least through a part of their life, and getting as much information as possible. Then, of course, and that's maybe of most relevance here, conservation is an important aspect. And if we follow the birds or the animals quite closely, we learn how best we can protect them. I'll come back to that later in a minute. Of course, it's great to use tracking of animals in public relations work, because it's always better if you can personalize an animal and tell this animal exactly this animal is doing exactly that thing. That is a lot easier to transport to people than working with statistics and other boring things. So the direct following of an animal is for sure a huge benefit to transport ideas of conservation or of general biological ideas to the public. And then there's the idea of using animals as natural sensors. I'm telling you in a minute what I mean with that. The animal tracking for conservation, just a very few examples. There are hundreds, if not thousands, already in the internet. Of course, we need to know which places the animals need, what they do there, and how they get there. So on the left side, that's the question, where does the stork find its food during the breeding season? We can answer that exactly with that map. On the right side, that's a curlew breeding at the green spot in the north and wintering, or the blue spot is a bit out of position, so they are wintering in the southern, close to the southern tip of Spain, and somehow they migrate there and get back. And it's a highly endangered species, and we had to find out where are the real problems of that bird. Is it the breeding season? Is it the breeding area? Or is it the area where they migrate? In France, we still have now and then shot birds, shot illegally by hunters. Are there other problems in the stopover sites, or are there problems in the wintering sites? And to answer these questions, you first need to know where the birds are. And for that, tracking is absolutely the best way. Then quite often you can also find out from other information you get how a bird died, which is the next crucial information for conservation. Do they die through predation, through human-made causes, through diseases or whatever? So this is an important information you get. And finally, this is from an exhibition. If you think of this long line fishing problem where albatrosses got entangled in long lines from fisheries, the initial question was there, we know that birds get lost, but at the beginning it wasn't clear where they get lost, and that could be 2,000 kilometers from the breeding site. During one foraging trip, they do incredible journeys, and by tracking them, it became quite clear where the problems are and why and what kind of problems they are. So for all these things, animal tracking is a great tool and will continue to be very suitable. The other idea is by tracking animals, you make them individuals. It's not just a statistical number. It's the bird, Bob or whatever, that many people like to follow. So they look at the animal tracker 3 times a day to see where their favorite animal is. And this creates a very stable relationship. And if then something happens to that bird, we have a huge public awareness. Here is an example from the bald ibises. That's a species that is currently being reintroduced into Germany. It's almost extinct, and into Austria and other places in Europe. And one of those birds, and meanwhile more than one, I think that's half a dozen of these birds, have been shot illegally by Italian hunters. And the public echo of these things, so it was a tracked bird, so everyone knew it, and then it was shot. And you can imagine the public effect of that. It was, so I think the authorities were much faster in finding the hunter who did that than if there would just have been shot any anonymous bald ibis out of a list that no one really knew. So this direct awareness of individualized animals can be used for conservation, and I think it should be used. There's this case, maybe you remember, it's not a bird, but it was a very famous case where a dentist from America had the bad idea to shoot the lion Cecil in Zimbabwe and posted that picture. And Cecil, unfortunately, was very well known because it also was carrying a GPS transmitter. Many people knew Cecil, and this raised a huge discussion. Brown is the media coverage on that map here about this hunting for fun in Africa and the things behind that. So if Cecil would just be one lion out of several hundred that are shot each year in Africa, it wouldn't matter much. But since it was a known individual, the effect was really huge. And that is something that I think really shall be used in conservation. And finally, the idea of animals as sensors. that is going a bit beyond the biology of the animal. The idea is whether animals can also help humans to solve problems, like this idea of frigate birds that may help to measure the ocean surface temperature to predict hurricanes. The frigate birds are there anyway, and if they land on the ocean surface, they could carry a tiny logger that measures the surface temperature, and that is obviously a crucial information for hurricane prediction. Or can goats or other livestock, for instance, help to predict volcanic eruptions or earthquakes? There are some ideas how that could work, and it's still under heavy debate whether it works, but at least it's a nice idea how animals really can help us in gathering important information that otherwise is not so easy to gather. Another nice example is, for instance, that birds can point to illegal littering. It has been done with gulls in a study, and that works pretty well. We tested our white stork data, whether we can find landfills in Spain through the behavior of white storks. And we indeed identified a lot of landfills. Those are these green dots here. They were not illegal, they were legal, but it shows that it's indeed possible to get the information from the birds where these landfills exist, so which means where littering happens, because these storks like the landfills as sources for food, and they stay there, and they really fly from rather long distances directly to these sources. And if we use the acceleration data to identify when birds feed, and then look through Google Earth, for instance, or other remote sensing data, what is at that place where they feed, we can identify these places rather easily. There's a lot of other interesting ideas how birds can help collecting data for humans, for instance, also pollution data collected by pigeons flying in the cities or things like that. All this is very interesting. Of course, it is extremely important to always keep an eye on the welfare of the animal, so we cannot load too heavy things to the animal. We always put a burden on them, even if it's half a gram. It is something more than they normally would like to carry, and this means, first of all, we have to check whether we can do it ethically, and if we do it, we have to pull out the maximum benefit that we can get from that data that was collected by the animals for us. My final picture, how can you join? As I told you, it would be great if everyone could install the Animal Tracker app to follow animals. And if you are close to an animal with a logger and you can observe it without disturbing it, of course, it would be great if you could use the Animal Tracker also to report back to us the things that we cannot see through tracking, which is currently at the moment, we have no idea what an animal is eating. So we can at best see now it's hunting, now it's eating something, but we cannot see what it is. So that's something an observer should tell us. If it's breeding, we cannot see how many juveniles it has. For instance, observers should tell us. Generally, it's interesting to get a feedback how it looks. Is it healthy? Is it in good condition? Is the logger in a good position, and things like that. And quite painful in studies about social behavior. Usually we have no idea whether our animal with the logger is alone on its way or whether it's in a big group. So these kinds of things should be reported by observers, and this can be done, for instance, through the Animal Tracker app. If you are not expecting to become one of these observers, it still can be extremely interesting just to pick out 2 or 3 individuals. You can make them favorites and then check each day what does it do. And by that way, you can follow birds migrating around the globe, or lions roaming through a national park, or things like that. So besides all the benefits that are there, I hope I have convinced you, there's always a big fun and fascination factor in following migrating animals, because they are doing things that we usually would not expect to be done by humans. And that is, of course, always fascinating. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thanks for joining, and I'll give back to the organizers.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. It's such an exciting program, and we're so pleased to have you on today. I'm going to move right on to NASA and to Ryan, our next speaker. And then at the end, we hope we'll have some time for a question or two for both of you. So Dr. Ryan Pavlik is with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory with the California Institute of Technology. His research interests include mapping and understanding the biodiversity of our planet and its effects on ecosystem functioning. Ryan, thank you so much for being here today. And I think most people think of Mars when they think of NASA, right? So we're excited to hear what's NASA's interest in tracking animals from space. And you are still muted, Ryan.
Great. I think I got it fixed now. Are you guys seeing the right screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So Wolfgang's talk set this up perfectly. I'm going to tell you.
It's not the right screen.
It's not the right screen. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, you're good.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a bit about what NASA's doing. It's a new activity that's spinning up. A little bit about me first. My background was in biogeography and earth system science. I actually did my PhD at 2 other Max Planck Institutes for biogeochemistry and meteorology. And then I moved to the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab about 8 years ago. And there I'm a research technologist, and I focus on developing the science, the tools, and particularly the space missions needed to observe and understand and hopefully conserve Earth's biosphere and all its diversity using the vantage point of space. So I'm a relative newcomer to animal tracking, but not to birds because I'm an amateur wildlife photographer. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about this brand new 5-year NASA incubation study. We actually just got the final okay this morning at 6:38 in the morning, just before this session. So that was great news. Let's see here. So first, biodiversity, which includes all of the birds that we care about. A survey both of the World Economic Forum, so that's the world's business leaders and economists, as well as scientists, both agree that biodiversity loss is going to be one of the biggest impacts and highest likelihood events or challenges that we'll face in the coming decades. And why is that important? And in particular, why is that important in terms of conserving bird species? Bird species are doing pest control. They are pollinators of our food, their food itself. They are also navigational hazards for things like aircraft. They're carriers of disease. The next pandemic could be a mutant of the avian influenza, and we want to know where the birds that are carrying that are coming and going to. They play a profound role in the global carbon and nutrient cycles, and thus affect the Earth system and our climate. And obviously, for many of the people that are listening today, they're a profound source of recreational joy. And then for some people also play an important role in their spiritual life. So understanding where, when, and how animals, and particularly birds, interact with and move through and between habitats is essential to crafting successful management plans to conserve Earth's wildlife, to preserve the ecosystem services that I just mentioned, and to safeguard our human well-being and our livelihoods. So now on to NASA. You might know the quote from John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And I encourage all of you to go back and either listen or read the full speech where he gave this quote, because the do the other things, a large part of the speech was dedicated to the science and the understanding and the things that we would gain from observing Earth from space. He mentioned things like wildfires, icebergs, storms, At that time, he hadn't envisioned tracking birds from space, but it wasn't long until that happened. So way back in 1966, NASA and the Smithsonian convened a workshop to examine the potential of satellites for tracking and monitoring wild animals. And by 1969, the US National Academy had recommended a full program in this area for the tracking of free-ranging animals, and to include experts in various branches of ecology as well as in remote sensing. And by 1970, so only 1 year later, the pace of innovation at this time was amazing. They launched a payload on the Nimbus 4 satellite and successfully tracked Monique, the space elk, which here's an illustration of Monique, the space elk, there over a migration season. And though throughout the 70s, NASA was heavily involved in this area. They led a series of meetings in the US where there was a whole of government approach. So there was dozens of agencies across the government, from agriculture to the Defense Department, public health, the State Department, the Smithsonian, state agencies, nonprofits, industry groups were involved in this discussion to understand what their needs were and how they could be addressed by tracking animals from space. Meanwhile, there was NASA-funded technical and scientific development that led to a lot of the advances, and they were particularly interested in miniaturization to track the migration of raptors and large seabirds. And they developed this report, this 234-page report that had this extensive justification for the user needs, the requirements, and a long-term roadmap for developing the technology further, data handling, which animals would be the best ones, how to collect the data, the system architecture. And then NASA helped develop Argos, which Wolfgang mentioned. But then in the early 80s, NASA kind of fell out of the game. And after Argos was set up, they didn't play as big a role anymore. And Argos, for a long time, kind of languished. There wasn't a whole lot of development. The tags, there was a tension between the biologists using it and the geophysicists that were using it. And the geophysicists often won out in that. But progress did continue, and by the mid-1980s, there was the first tracking of a bird, a bald eagle, and then a giant petrel via satellite telemetry through using Argos. And then, skipping forward a couple of decades, as Wolfgang mentioned, we now have Icarus, and it's able to track, many tags on many animals with extremely low tag mass, so you can get them onto smaller and smaller animals. And it's on the space station, so it's not exactly global, but it can cover a large area. So every 2 years, there's something called the Satellite Needs Working Group in the US government, where they survey the various federal agencies and they ask, what Earth observation data do you need to fulfill your operational missions? And so some of those agencies are agencies like the USGS, the US Geological Survey, US Fish and Wildlife Service, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. And if multiple agencies say they need the same kind of information, NASA will consider development in that area. And that was been the case. So over the last couple of these cycles, these various agencies have asked for lower mass tags, for long duration observations, high frequency. They want low latency information. So they want to get the information off the tags quickly and into the hands of decision makers. Moderate geolocation knowledge of 10 to 30 meters, a large number of tags. Obviously, they want the tags to be cheap. And what's really important to them is a sustained operational system. So Icarus on the space station is great, but it's a technology demonstration built with commercial off-the-shelf parts, and we don't know exactly how long it will last. And they want something that they can build their operational mission around. And so that means it needs to be there for the long haul. So basically what they're asking for is a new and improved NASA wildlife monitoring program, the same thing that was developed back in the 70s. And that's what we're kicking off now. And so the first step of that is understanding the science and application observation needs for spaceborne animal telemetry. So that's going to involve a series of workshops, surveys, and other mechanisms to compile a comprehensive set of the big science questions and applications, conservation primarily objectives in this area. And then the next step is developing what's called in NASA jargon, a science traceability matrix, which is a table which basically links up those questions with the measurement requirements. So in this case, what sort of species, what sort of tags do they need, under what conditions, over how long, those sort of things, and the data product needs. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. And then characterizing the community of practice a bit further. What organizations are using this sort of data or interested in this kind of data? How do they use it to make decisions? What other related Earth observation data do they use? And what are their pain points? Like what is holding them back right now? Maybe tags are too expensive, or they need smaller tags, things like that. And then the next step, or really in parallel, is understanding what's currently going on. So NASA's not coming into this to try to take over. We're trying to come into this to partner with, for example, the Max Planck Institute for Animal Behavior and Environment for Americas and USGS and whatnot. Like I said, I'm not an animal movement ecologist. I'm really what's a science systems engineer, someone that's trying to link the science to the engineering that needs to happen to make this system, or get closer to making the system a reality, or a long-term reality. So, some of the things that Wolfgang mentioned, there are ethical and regulatory concerns, like red listed species. You don't want to give away the location of a white rhino, for example. Animal welfare, there's on the technical side, the RF spectrum. Privacy, what's stopping a jilted lover from putting a tag on their ex-girlfriend's car, ex-boyfriend's car, and tracking them. A gap analysis. So there are a couple of systems that are either in place or planned, Icarus, Argos, a new one coming up called Kinesis. There are a number of tag manufacturers, there's MoveBank and other data systems. And so we need to know what is not currently being fulfilled and where are the gaps that need development. And then assessing the technology readiness level. So what are the technologies that are out there that could potentially fill some of those gaps? So for example, there are CubeSat antennas that are deployable that could shrink this down to a payload that's like the size of a soccer ball, compared to the much larger Icarus system that's on the space station now. And then the next step is bringing all those pieces together and actually architecting a system of systems that has high performance, meets the needs of the scientists and applications users, is not too expensive for what we think that the various agencies that would be funding this could put into it. The schedule, and then road mapping, understanding what the technologies and partnerships, business models, systems that need development to achieve that architecture, what the plan needs to be going forward and the priorities for that. Meanwhile, while this is going on, if we know that there's particular technical development that needs to occur, for instance, shrinking the tags or making some improvements to MoveBank, we want to be prototyping those in a spiral development model where we're testing as we go, as we develop. So this is a picture of Martin Wikelski, the sort of PI of Icarus, testing a tag on an animal. And that's the mode that this project is going to operate in, that we're going to be working alongside these agencies, trying to understand by actually standing there next to them and understanding how they tag animals and how they use that information. And then if we develop anything or bring something together, components that others have developed, we want them to be testing that as well. And then finally, important to this project is integrating movement data with what I call the golden age of biodiversity remote sensing. So people have been linking movement data with remote sensing for a while, particularly things like NDVI, which is a measure of greenness that you can measure from space. But we're just at the cusp at a time where we can now measure the 3D structure of the global forest. We can measure the traits of the forest canopies, things like the nitrogen content and lignin, phosphorus, whatnot, that make up the functional biodiversity of the forest canopy. We can measure the function, the productivity, the evapotranspiration, the temperature of the land surface, even getting down to detecting species or the diversity of species and their spectral signature from space, and as well as topography and all sorts of other environmental factors. So one of the goals of this project is to link this wealth of information and come up with this, and to get closer to systems that are able to pull from all of these various sources and really link the movement data with these new forms of biodiversity remote sensing. And part of that might be defining and creating certain higher level data products for a product for an individual, a population, a species, an assemblage of species, and also just doing some science, or so that we can understand better how to develop the system. And it's not just tracking animals from space, and it's not just remote sensing, but there's a whole range of other in situ observations that are, taking off. There are camera traps, there's environmental DNA, bioacoustics, and other sort of, Wolfgang mentioned citizen scientists with cell phones. And it's not necessarily within the scope of this project, but this project can contribute to it. But NASA's thinking about this more broadly, is how do we bring all of these pieces together into a common data system and pull in, systems that are built by other agencies and nonprofits, and fill in this gap that keeps the data from being of most use to the users at the end. And finally, community building. So we hope to do some training, whether it's online webinars, summer school, internships, virtual seminar series. And the particularly important is herding the cats. So getting this community to engage in what's called the U.S. National Academy of Sciences Earth Science Decadal Survey process. And that was a real mouthful there. But this is a document that is produced every 10 years by the National Academy in the United States that sort of becomes the sacred text, the Bible for what NASA, USGS, and NOAA are going to do in terms of Earth observations across the next 10 years. And there was one that just came out in 2017, and unfortunately, it doesn't mention animal movement once anywhere. And so we need to overwhelm this process with inputs and let them know that tracking animals from space is really important, and that there's so many different ways that this data can be used, so that there can be a whole chapter on animal movement in the next version when it comes out in 2027. So finally, if you have any questions, if you're interested in engaging with us, we're literally just kicking off this project, you can email me. And I also mentioned that we have a postdoc opening for people that are interested in that integration of movement data with biodiversity remote sensing. And you can find out more about that at tinyurl.com/biodiversity postdoc.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's wonderful to hear about that work, and it's so interesting. And I know on our various social media pages where we're launching this, I'm seeing all these comments about, wow, that's so fascinating. Both for you and Wolfgang, I wanted to just ask one question. I don't think we have time for too many more before our next presentation. I know everybody's interested in, you showed pictures of storks and rhinoceros, and someone asked if, what does the future of the technology look like? How small can the technology get to help us, to track some of these smaller organisms?
I will let Wolfgang answer that.
Sorry, yeah. Maybe you can tell us after I told the dreams how realistic they are. So, of course, we dream of a logger that has a maximum of 1 gram, better half a gram, and is transmitting GPS points, because then we would be able to follow all these songbirds that are probably the majority of the interesting long distance migrants, many of them under high conservation concern. And maybe the next step would even be large insects, where we don't know where we don't know anything about their migration. So I think that is something that is not completely a dream, But currently, I see it with the Icarus things. The 5 grams are quite a challenge to get it running. So the 1 gram might be a bit more realistic than anything below 1 gram. Limiting factors are the size of the solar panel that we can add, and largely it's the energy consumption of these loggers that needs for larger batteries.
You can see a plot here. This is actually from the Icarus Consortium of the percentage of species for reptiles, birds, and mammals at different tag sizes that can be monitored from space. And so when you get down to 1 gram, you are over 65% of all bird species and an even larger number of mammals. So that hopefully helps answer the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know everybody's waiting with anticipation for the time when they can study their organisms better. You talked a little bit, and I love it didn't even cross my mind that someone would think of tracking, say, a partner using one of the tags. In terms of using this for conservation, and it's so critical, and the work that you're doing in that way is so important. How does that complicate your work? You start this work as a scientist and a researcher, learning about migration and movements of wildlife, and then it moves into a realm where it actually potentially becomes dangerous. You're working with multiple governments and places where people are working really hard to protect animals. Can you speak a little bit to the conservation aspect of the use of this kind of information?
May I start? Yeah.
Sure.
So in our case, it's not so difficult because we have all these conservation societies in place that know how to deal with politicians and with the public and how to do a campaign. And all we need to do from the science side is to contact them, to get in contact with them, and to cooperate with them. So we usually deliver the data and part of the interpretation of the data. And then we can hand over the problem, so to say, to the conservationists, and they do the rest. And so far, that works excellent.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, did you want to comment?
To be honest, I haven't actually tagged any animals yet, other than volunteer bird banding a long time ago. So I can't really answer that question.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you to both of you. I think, the conservation implications are so big and so important as we track animals and learn more about where they're going and what happens to them along the way. Thank you so much. I wish we had a lot more time for this, but we're going to move on now to our next presentation. We have a little fun activity for everyone now. We have invited some young people to come to us with questions, and we're going to play a question from Gabriel. Gabriel is from Boulder, Colorado, and he has a question that is going to be answered by our expert of the moment, Dr. John Alexander of the Klamath Bird Observatory. So we'll just put that video up, and you can listen to Gabriel's question about birds. And of course, from all the videos that we got so many fascinating questions. So are we ready with that video?
My name is Gabriel, and I am 5. And we live in...
Oops, what happened to Gabriel? I think we lost him. Gabriel is 5 years old, and he's from Boulder, Colorado again, and we'll try that again.
My name is Gabriel, and I am 5. And we live in Boulder, Colorado. And we love parrots. My question to the expert is how and why do parrots talk? Thank you.
How and why do parrots talk? So John Alexander, are you out there? Can you answer this question? I know parrots are right up your alley.
I'm here. Thank you, Sue. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Got a couple slides to show. Is that okay?
I do. That's fine. Yeah.
All right, let me pull those up. Can you see my first slide?
Not quite yet. It'll take just a second for it to come up, I think. Unless you don't have it up. I'm not seeing it yet. Can you try that again?
Yeah, let me try something. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, share. Okay. I'm usually pretty good at this. Well, thank you so much, Sue. And thank you, Gabriel. Now, can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. So real quick, I'm with an organization called the Klamath Bird Observatory, and we work with Partners in Flight and Environment for the Americas, and we celebrate World Migratory Bird Day every day. We focus a lot of our work in the Pacific Northwest, but of course follow our migratory birds, the Western forest birds, down into Mexico and Central America, working with all sorts of wonderful partners. So happy World Migratory Bird Day every day, everyone. And great question, Gabriel. The reason that this is a great question, in my opinion, is as a scientist, I find the best questions and sometimes the questions that are most fun to answer are the ones that I don't know the answers to. So to answer Gabriel's question, Sue and I did a little bit of research. So thanks, Sue, for helping me with that research. And you know, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So this was real fun. So in our research, we found this great site called Animal Wonders Montana, and it's really important when you do research and that we learn from each other. And it's really important when we're presenting our research that we acknowledge our sources and the people that we're learning from. And so this was a great opportunity. Check out Animal Wonders Montana. They answer all sorts of exciting questions. Parrots are highly evolved, and one way ornithologists classify birds is based on their evolutionary relationships. It's by looking, and one of the ways they do that is by looking at the complexity of their vocal systems. Birds that are older evolutionarily have simple, hardwired vocalizations, and birds that are more evolved have more complex systems, both physically and mentally. So the ability of a parrot to speak both represents that physically it can make a lot of noise and that it's smart. They make a wider variety of sounds. They can learn vocalizations. They have a larger repertoire, and they can better recognize the meaning of different sounds. So unlike songbirds, parrots don't come hardwired for specific languages. They learn how to vocalize. So why do parrots talk? Like many things in science, this is a subject of continuous study, and people are studying this in the lab and in the wild. Parrots mimic sounds. They have different dialects. They can mimic other species, and they even mimic non-living noises. And it appears to be a sign of fitness. And what that means is a good talker is likely a good breeder. Now, remember, that's not always the case with human beings, but it seems to be the case with birders. I mean, with parrots. So the other thing is they can use their complex vocalization systems to identify where other parrots are from. And that helps them. Do I want to mate with somebody from nearby, or do I want to mate with somebody from further away? Their complex vocalizations help them locate each other individually in the ruckus of the forests and in the ruckus of large parrot flocks. And parrots in the wild mostly mimic each other, and they learn from each other, and they even have names that they learn, not only their own names, but the names of their fellow parrots. There's a wonderful researcher, Dr. Irene Pepperberg, who studied parrots in the lab, and her famous parrot, gray parrot Alex, demonstrated that parrots have the ability to understand, to learn concepts, and to be creative. And so that's kind of some of the reasons why it's help them communicate with each other, really. And so when they're in human captivity, they're just learning to communicate with us. So birds use the syrinx. Unlike humans and other mammals, we use the larynx. Birds use the syrinx, and it's located at the bottom of the trachea here, where it splits into the two bronchi. And parrots have evolved to use this to make a vast array of sounds. And what's unique, because it splits into two places, is parrots can make two different sounds at the same time. And they can use these two different airways to vocalize continuously. And so this is an example of a highly evolved syrinx that's very complex and can create different noises, and then a very smart bird that can use that to use all of these things for, to use their vocalizations for all these different reasons. With that said, thank you so much. Check out, if you want to, Big Year at Home at partnersinflight.org. It's a program that we're working on to help us engage new people in bird loving and different ways. And you've already met our first challenge by participating in World Migratory Bird Day. So Sue, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, and happy World Migratory Bird Day, everyone.
Thanks, John. Thanks for coming on and answering that question for Gabriel. I'm sure he'll be excited. I'm going to turn the program over now to Miguel Mata and Daniela Sosa. Miguel is our Latin American coordinator and Daniela is our Mexico coordinator. So they are going to bring us together for a tour of the Museo de Aves in Mexico. So Daniela and Miguel, are you there?
Sí, aquí estamos.
Gracias, Susan. Thank you very much, and Alexander, for your answer for the question. And yeah, we are very excited to have the Museo de las Aves in Mexico. We're gonna have a different rooms in the museum. Maybe Daniela can tell us a little bit more about this museum and why this is so important and why people love this museum in Mexico.
Hola, hola.
Yeah. Thank you, Miguel. I don't know if it's
Bueno.
Spanish. Hola, Samuel. Los voy a introducir y ya comenzamos. ¿Está bien?
Bueno, a ver, otra vez.
¿Nos escuchas?
Sí, ¿tú nos escuchas ya?
Sí. Les voy a dar
¿Sí nos escuchas?
Sí, sí los escucho.
Está bien.
Ok. Bueno, rápido, vamos a comenzar, como dijo mi... Sí, ¿me escuchas bien?
Sí, ya, ahorita ya, estamos listos.
Ok, pues solo para introducirlos, Samuel, estamos muy contentos de que estén aquí, emocionados por este tour y un museo tan bonito y único en el mundo y tan especial. Vamos a tener este recorrido virtual con diferentes miembros del museo y con nuestro coordinador y con el coordinador del programa.
And with the coordinator of urban areas, Samuel Lopez. And well, this is a very special museum because it showcases how rich Mexico is in terms of bird species in Mexico, but also in terms of migration of species throughout our continent. So without further ado, I yield the floor to you and welcome. We're very excited for this tour. All right, well, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us from the Environment of the Americas today with you all. And to introduce you the Museum of Birds in Mexico, but also for you to know the different species of migratory birds that visit us every year in Mexico. And well, I'm going to introduce Massimo. Massimo is in charge of coming with the tour in the 5 different rooms that you are going to get to know right now. I hope that you enjoy them and you like it as much as we do. So I'm going to give the microphone. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Massimo, and I'm going to present the hall number 1 of the museum. This hall in particular, I really like it because we get to know how the museum was originated. This was founded in 1993, and as many other museums of the world, this was originated based on a personal collection by a collector. This collection was from this person. His name was Aldebundo Garza de Leon. And after collecting these pieces in 1993, we founded the museum. We can also see this timeline here that indicates the history of this museum and all the actions that have been carried out throughout the years. the hall that tells us the story of the museum. And since you are visitors right now, we want to welcome you to the Museum of Mexican Birds. We would like to thank you very much for being here and to invite you so you can come over and you get to know a lot of resident and migratory birds in Mexico. Thank you. Welcome. Here, we have section number 2 of hall number 1. And this section explains a little bit more about the evolutionary history of birds. In the past, birds were like this, dinosaurs. They had no feathers, or maybe they had just very, very few feathers. They had scales, claws, very large claws. They don't look like nowadays or current birds. However, these are the birds in the past. This is one of the earliest fossils that we have from the evolutionary stories. And compared to this dinosaur right here, we can see the resemblance of current birds. As the years went by, which we're talking about millions of years, we saw some characteristics like more feathers, different colors, and especially these changes occurred as the birds were adapting to their ecosystem. Some of them were adapting to fish, like this. For example, this one right here was adapted to swim, and some others, such as this very, very horrendous birds, terror birds, they were adapted to hunt. They were stronger, larger, with longer beaks. It is very important to mention that all of these birds shown in this evolutionary timeline in the museum, they did not interact with human beings because we're talking about millions of years ago. However, in this other section, we have this section that is called the Island of Crickets. This bird actually interacted with human beings, with some of our ancestors. However, we cannot see them right now because they were hunted or they disappeared. This one right here, this is an elephant bird. As you can see, the skin of this bird is very similar to an elephant. This was very, very heavy and was more adapted to run instead of flying. It had a very, very short wings, but very strong feet, so they can run away from their predators or to run very long distances. We have also this giant bird, a moa, adapted to running as well. However, these two birds are not, they do not exist anymore because they were hunted. However, we want to share with you this species of an ostrich that, as you can see, is very similar. It is, of course, not of the same size. These were super huge, but an ostrich has very, very similar characteristics. It is a little bit smaller. We can see it in different countries in the world. It is an adapted bird, such as the elephant and the moa bird. So it can run, but it doesn't fly. I mean, it's not adapted to fly. So moving on with this hole number 1, so you guys can know about the birds, we would like to talk to you about, in this specific section, about the flight of the birds. As you know, birds can fly. These are not the only animals that can actually fly. Also, bats, fireflies, they fly. However, birds are the only animals with feathers. One of the many other characteristics that help them fly is that their bones, unlike ours, are very, very hard. They are porous, they're shallow, and that makes it way lighter. So with the feathers and the light bones, because of this, birds can fly. Not all birds fly the same way. Some small birds, they flap their wings. Some other large birds, such as prey birds right here, like this one, this peregrine falcon, which is one of the fastest birds in the world. It flies in very high altitudes. And We also have this species of hummingbird. Hummingbirds are birds. They have an amazing flight patterns because they can fly up, down, and sideways. This is the fly. And in this whole number one, we're talking about the classification of birds, how these birds are classified, what was their history. For example, we have this little, some little passage of the history with Charles New, the father of taxonomy. In this museum, we classify birds by size or by colors, and we also have a banding system, in which each bird has a band, and each band has a code of alphanumeric code, so they can indicate the main features and characteristics of its species or contemporary. We talk about the Mexican families as well. We can also see some examples of migratory birds. These birds, we've seen these birds very, very much in Mexico. We have also this exemplary of gray crane, which also migrates to Mexico. We have some members of our family here. So that's it from me. This is hall number one, the museum. And now moving on for you to keep on getting to the Museum of Birds. We're starting with hall number two with my colleague Jael, who is going to talk to you about how the different ecosystems where birds live. Hi, Jael. Good morning. There you go. Okay, let's start with hall number two. Mexico is a very privileged country. We have coasts in the Pacific Ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, and the Caribbean. The coasts that we can find are very sandy, and we can find seagulls over here. We can also find sea birds, such as the albatross, because I mean, this is a very surprising bird because it can fly for weeks or months without touching ground. Another very popular bird are white pelicans. These birds can carry around 5 kilograms of food in their beaks.
De selva siempre verde. Los árboles de la selva pueden llegar a medir más.
The birds in the rainforest, they can actually measure more than 40 meters. In Mexican rainforest, we can find rainforests in Tabasco and in Chiapas, and the birds that live in these places are very colorful. We can find green parrots, red parrots, toucans, and parakeets. In the lower rainforest, we can find birds that cannot fly. We can move to this area so we can observe the ecosystem that we see here in Coahuila. We can find that the colors and the ecosystems of shrubs and desert are brown. So birds are brownish. They can actually camouflage very well. In this area, we can find birds like this. The weather of this area is hostile, which means that some birds create burrows so they can leave some other species to find there. And some birds even fight for food. For example, we see one over here that is hunting a snake. I'm going to show you a beautiful ecosystem of humid and temperate weather, our cloudy forest. A very beautiful and endangered bird, quetzal.
Looks like we might have a little bit of transmission difficulty from Mexico as we do our tour of the Museum of Birds in Coahuila, Mexico.
Podemos ver cómo en esta
We can see
representación
here in this representation, in this depiction, it is hunting a chachalaca. Moving on, we are approaching so we can observe our forest. For instance, over here, these are represented. This is very important for us. The pygmy macaw, this is known as pygmy macaw. We know it as Cotorra serrana because it lives in the Sierra Madre of Coahuila. This is an endemic species, which means that it can only live in this specific place. We can also see in this depiction, we have eagles. These are the national symbol of Mexico, the Aquila grisaceus, because it has golden, well, we also know it as golden eagle because it has golden feathers in the back of the neck and in the feet. We can see the male over here. We see that they live in rocks. We can also, and canyons, we can also find these different types of owls. Moving on, and sparrowhawks. We can also talk about marshes. Marshes are places that where the river flows into the ocean. We can see how this creates mangroves and other type of ecosystems. And the main characteristics of this species are that they have very long legs and very long beaks, which helps them to walk around different muds and they avoid sinking. The popular birds of this area are pink Ulysses, brown pelicans, anindas, and fishing eagles. If we turn around over here, we can see the horned peacock. And well, this bird is about to disappear because of the different wood cutting and different the separating of these ecosystems make it difficult for them to exit. We have another bird, the most wonderful bird of them all, the eagle. This is the harpia eagle. Harpy eagle. This can live in the top of the rainforest. She eats some different species of mammals. It is strong, and with a lonely claw, it can crush the cranium of these animals. We can see here a vulture, a Mexican vulture, and unlike some other vultures, the rainforest vultures are way more colorful. Moving on, we have the upper part of our ecosystems. We can see some Now we're moving on to our urban areas. The birds of urban areas are very used to traffic and pollution, and they were able to adapt very good to this. They have enough and plenty of food, and they have the reproduction can happen several times a year. Common doves, Tamaulipas cats, and some other species live in the cities. And the night, and well, in the night owls, the night birds are the barn owl are actually hunts night. They can help to hour. Now, moving on to hall number 3. Hopefully you enjoyed this small tour in our hall number 2 when we show the places where birds live. Now, I leave the mic with our colleague Ananya. Hi, welcome. We are in the third hall of the museum. We are going to identify some habits and make use of the birds. As many of us know, birds are born via an egg. These eggs are placed in nests. These nests can vary in terms of shape and size and materials. For instance, over here, we can see the nest of an American flamingo. This is known as a pit. It is very tall and is comprised by mud and sand. And this is to protect uh, the little birds from the sea currents. Well, the nests that we know the most are bowls or domes, which it looks like if they have walls and ceilings, and most of them are made out of branches or dried leaves or feathers or even of hair of other animals as well. We can see the nest of the Eurasian golden oriole, which looks like a bag, and it is this is mainly for to keep the chicks with heat and very comfortable, and then make it with the chest and the tummy, which is very, very warm. So in order for them to create a nest and to have little babies, they need to find a wall. They need to find a mate, and this is called as mating. Mating has different activities. For instance, we can see some great cranes over here that actually are performing a ritual when they jump and they sing and they dance, and some other birds, they give presents and food to their potential partners. And the main purpose of courting is to show that the male is healthy and is strong and is apt to mate. And in addition to it, all of these characteristics are going to be transferred to the offspring. There are even some males who fight in some rituals known as fleck rituals, where the strongest will obtain the best female partner. Sometimes feather helps us to differentiate between males and females, and in many, many species to court. We're going to talk about this sexual dimorphism. We're going to see several mates over here. We can see the male and the female between each other, and we can know the difference between them. For example, in this specific species of duck, you can see a male with with a white stomach, very, very attractive, and we can see a dotted female in brown color. This is, of course, part of the mating ritual, but also the female that needs to take care of the nest or the offspring. She needs to protect them from predators. As you can see, many of these females have brown, greenish colors, more demure colors that will allow them to protect the offspring. Feathers, that we can see, is very, very important in birds. It protects all of their bodies from the sun, from the rainfall, from cold weather. It helps them to mate. It helps us to differentiate between male and female. We can even distinguish adult birds from non-adult birds. Even when they might migrate, they change the feathers. As we can see in this specific bird, it changes colors, and it even looks more like a female, even though it is a male. We are going to see the predator. And once again, predation. Predation is very important, and the predators are very important. Predation is a mechanism that some birds use to hunt other animals. We can see one of the largest predators that is a very, very owls have a very, very soft plumage. It's the great horned owl. It has a very strong claws. We can see some birds that can defend themselves and they can hide in the vegetation. The side is sideways so they can observe the escape routes. For example, we can see here that is, this specific bird, the Eurasian bittern, is hiding from other predators. This also helps them hide by a mechanism called mimicry, which is some sort of a camouflage where the plumage is hidden in the nature. For example, we can see some birds that are hidden in the vegetation. Moving on to a different part, a more interesting part of our tour, which is the migration part. Today, specifically, that we talk about that we are celebrating the migratory birds. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Migration is something cyclical, is something that is performed by many, many species of animals. And in terms of birds, they look for warmer places. They are looking for places with more food. For example, we have an excellent representation here of a resting state where we can see some species that are arriving and some others that are flying away. For example, the Canadian geese, they fly away with a classic formation V that we know in migratory birds that helps them resist the air currents and to have a better flight. Migration is studied by banding processes, and thanks to them, we know the specific routes to follow when they're traveling, what are the species that are arriving to different places. And currently, and in a more modern way, we can use transmitters. For example, we have this arrow with a satellite transmitter, and we can follow its route. We can study the route. We can find a little bit more about migration and find out magnificent species that are known as migration champions. We have a beautiful sample here in the museum. These are birds who make extraordinary flights. They can travel long distances in a record time. We can this one very, very small, which is a ruby-throated hummingbird. And you can see he's very, very small, but he flies from the Florida Peninsula in the United States to the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And it does it in approximately 12 hours. We're talking about 100 kilometers at distance, but he flies very, very fast without stopping. It crosses all the Gulf of Mexico. We can see another bird over here, which is the Swanson falcon. It goes from Alaska to Argentina in South America. Now that we are connected at all the Americas are connected, we can maybe identify the specific species. We can see it because let me remind you that all of, I mean, it travels our continent in a round trip. This is another hummingbird that flies from the US to Mexico. It stops quite a bit. It is not like the ruby-throated hummingbird. It stops quite a bit so he can eat. And it is very important just to talk about the different stops. It is very important for us in our natural areas and in our cities. We try to preserve these places for the migratory birds to rest, so they can arrive, they can eat, they can rest for a couple of days, and maybe they can move on to the long journey that they have to take, filled with dangers and a lot of risks, coming from natural disasters as hurricanes or predators, even urbanization. Now with the different windmills and building different cities and shopping centers, all of that affects our migration birds. They can actually create specific records. These are birds that we have found here in Coahuila, but are not from this state. The majority are coming from different, migratory birds. The theory is that they got lost in the migration journey for some issues, maybe a hurricane or a storm, and they end up in places, very unusual places. For example, here, this tundra bird, this tundra swan, we found it in Coahuila, and we have they become noteworthy record. That's it from my end. We're moving forward to the fourth hall of the museum, and we get to know how we can help to protect these birds with my colleague Samuel. Thank you very much, Ana. Okay, moving on with our tour of the Mexican Museum of Birds. And I gotta tell you, I'm very, very excited to be part of this and to share with you what we as a museum we show every year. Let's take a look. I'm going to come closer here. We have a California condor. This exemplary one was one of the 11 birds that was released in San Pedro Market, Baja California. This species has been studied by scientists and especially, and it has a very important reintroduction program in our country and in the United States. This species is one of the largest of of scavenger birds, and its width from one end of one wing to another end of one wing is 3 meters. This is a not mature individual. This not mature individual was unfortunately found, and he was sick because he had eaten meat with lead, with lead. It is very sad for us to know that we as humans we keep on polluting several places in the planet, and unfortunately, and in spite, we made every effort possible to save this species of California condor. Died. And the Wildlife Department of the United States of America donated this species to Mexico, so we can all get to know this species that lives and is part of the birds of Mexico. Another species that is very interesting is this one that I'm showing here. Is a white crane. This white crane is one of the tallest birds that we can find in North America. It can, it can be up to 1.5 meters tall. This migratory bird actually arrived in Mexico's whooping crane. Even to our state in Coahuila, in a place known as the Maidan Lagoon. Right now, this lagoon is dried, and unfortunately, this whooping crane does not arrive to our country. However, in the United States, with a program called Operation Migration, they were able to bring this species back again and to so we can find it flying in the United States. And there's actually a program called Hope Takes Wing, where scientists could make it possible for this species to be able to migrate to Louisiana. It is amazing what this bird teaches. I'm showing you these two specific species for you so you can see that we need to make it better as humans to the planet, and it is possible to do it. However, we are also showing this so several other species could be do it. For this cause, we have two natural reserves. I'm going to show it right here. One of them is the Taray Natural Reserve, which is located in the Sierra Madre, Western Sierra Madre, to be specific, in the Arteaga Mountains. This reserve is coordinated between CONAVIO, which is the National Commission for Uses and Studies of Biodiversity in Mexico, and the Museum of Birds in Mexico. This reserve, this was created to protect, well, you see this is specifically a little while ago, but it was created to protect this specific bird. This endemic species of the Mexican territory lives in this reserve of El Taray. Also, we can find some resident or local birds to protect local birds and migratory birds like this one. Now, moving on, I'm going to show you another natural reserve that the museum has, which is the Natural Reserve La India. In this reserve, protected area, the museum protects. It is incredible. It is quite amazing. I am very, very excited. So I'm gonna show you myself. I'm gonna show you this. This little sparrow that you see here is a working sparrow. It's one of the rarest sparrows in the planet. We, as a museum, we have a natural reserve of 700 hectares where we preserve the population of this species. This species of sparrow is unique. Unfortunately, there are efforts for its preservation, and the Museum of Birds is one of the institutions in charge of preserving it. By taking care of this working sparrow, we also protect many, many other species of birds, such as this one. I don't know if you saw this one, which is called the pluvialis. We have different type of pluvialis over here, and it is one of the migration champions over here. This bird, you probably know it, the Mexican falcon. And in the center, we can see a bird that we know as tortilla with chili, which is Strunella magna. And this is the real, it's the middle lark. In this species, in the La India Reserve, we also find the Mexican eagle. That moving on, once we move forward to hall number 5, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it. As a museum, we're quite unique in terms of having 2 natural reserves that help on the preservation of the birds in Mexico. All right, moving on with hall number 5. We're about to finish our tour around the bird museum, but this specific hall is for the endangered bird species. And the main dangers for species in this world, we can see some races that remind us that we as humans are part of the planet, but we do not own the planet. Okay, I want you to remind you, this is a harpy eagle. These birds over here, these are birds that are endangered species. Basically, all of these species, if we don't take care of this species, in very, very little time, we're going to be talking about extinction. For instance, this bird over here, this is the only record that we have, and this is a crest eagle. This is very similar to the harpy eagle, as you can see it. This is a crest eagle. It's very, very similar, but this one is very, very, it's quite smaller. We have parrots. We have the, which is, we have this specific bird, which is Rhynchoxica pharyngiana, which is the thick-billed parrot. And it's very important for us to note that this species adapted to live in the cold areas of the Western Sierra Madre, in this case, and on the Eastern Sierra Madre as well. We have a couple of and these birds that we're going to show you in this specific in this part, those are endangered species. This is the Muscovy duck. I would like to talk about each of them. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this eagle. This is one of the species that is prepared for exhibition. This is a solitary eagle, and even though we're a scientific collection, we are in charge of showing or showcasing these birds so you get to know them as if they were alive. Let me remind you that we are located in the city of Saltillo, in the state of Coahuila in Mexico. And let me tell you, this species is one of the two species that we have with open wings. And it's called lonely eagle because its habits are that it lives either alone, flying alone, or with a partner. It's a very rare species. It is quite difficult to see a solitary eagle in Mexico. All right. I want to pan out once again so you can see the species of birds. We hopefully this endangered species do not disappear because it'll be very sad to lose this birds because of the colors and forms that it has. Okay, now moving on, we're gonna talk about well, this is a species of Camephilus imperialis, which is an imperial woodpecker. And unfortunately, this one is extinct in the wildlife. It's one of the largest ones in the world. Since 1956, it was the last record that we had for this species. In actuality, well, we have a couple over here. This is the male, and we have here the female. This species are a replica, actually, because in Mexico, it is quite curious, but we do not have any species of imperial woodpecker that we can showcase. There are some collections, from other parts of the world, but for us as a museum, it'll be amazing for us to showcase an example of imperial woodpeckers of all Mexicans, not only Mexicans, but everyone coming over to the museum to be able to see it and to know it. It is well known that it might be possible, for it to exist in the Western Sierra Madre. So hopefully, this amazing, amazing woodpecker still exists in some forests of the Western Sierra Madre. Now I'm going to show you a wall that we name it as dangers for birds. One of the main dangers for birds, for both resident and migratory birds, is the crashing against electric lines, electric wires going through our fields. Fortunately, each time that we lay out electric line, we take measures for the birds to see it. They also take measures that for the birds when they go on the poles, they avoid touching both cables, so they die by electric shock. Another very impactful danger is the crashing against glasses. As we can see, here as a migration species. I don't know if you know this species. We know it uh, as Piranga ludoviciana. And the name of it in English is Western tanager. Many of these migratory birds, they migrate during the daytime, but they also do it in the nighttime. And sometimes when they do it during the nighttime, sometimes birds crash against the walls of buildings. There are many million of deaths of birds every year for birds because of birds crashing on the glasses. What we can see is we can put some lines in our houses from the inside, so birds can see that there's actually glass. So we can contribute that migratory birds is not dying because of this specific accident. One of the most impactful dangers are the loss and transformation of the habitat. Millions of hectares on a yearly basis are lost because each time more and more we have human beings that we need food and we need places to live. So rainforests, forests, mangroves, deserts, they're changed and they're transformed into croplands or residential areas so we can have more people living there. So what can we do? Well, we can do many times. We can stop consuming energy, power. For instance, what can we do? What can we do here? We need to take care of our resources, to use less power, electric power, whenever not necessary. We should not waste food. I think that is something very important. When we stop wasting natural resources, most likely they are going to be able to have a better development and benefits from us. One of the great dangers, and actually when we share this information with everyone, with our visitors, and maybe our visitors, they don't even know, is we talk about cats. They don't believe about cats. In North America, we know that cats can kill up to 1 billion birds per year. It is amazing. It is incredible the amount of birds that die because they get caught by cats. And here, another danger that we have is pollution, particularly plastic pollution. Every year we use plastics. It is undeniable that it is necessary for us to keep them using, but we can use them in a better and more smart way. So we can avoid the single-use plastics. For instance, we're about to finish the tour, and I would like to talk to you about this species that we have here. This is a golden eagle species. As you see, golden eagles are very meaningful for us in Mexico. This is our national symbol, and it is part of our history. This specific species has more than 50 years. More than 50 years. This species is from here, from the area of Saltillo in Coahuila, and it was collected around 1957, more than 50 years ago. And this species, we have it here in the end of the tour to tell them that biological collections, the scientific collections, they do not harm bird population. These collections, such as the Bird Museum, with appropriate care, have caused that at least 2 million people were able to see this species. 2 million people. In more than 20 years of existence of this museum, they were able to see this species. We also share this species because of this. In spite of being a bird that was relatively common, nowadays this bird is threatened. And even though it is very widely distributed because it goes from Canada to Mexico, and by which we as Mexicans we feel obliged to take care of it. Unfortunately, this bird is facing new challenges every year because it nests, and these nests are looted by people. The golden eagles are poisoned. Golden eagles crashed against electric lines and they die. Golden eagles also suffer when they clash against wind turbines. So we as Mexicans, we are very concerned as Mexicans because this bird, so we can keep this bird species. It'll be very, very sad for us that our national symbol disappears because of ourselves. So this was hall number 5. So you can see it once again. This hall number 5 is the last hall in our tour. And before coming out, we would like to thank for the Environment of the Americas for the opportunity for being able to be broadcasting directly from the city of Saltillo, Coahuila, where the Bird Museum of Mexico is located. And also we as a museum, we would like to, for you to come over live personally, to come over here. We would like to talk to you. We know that during this pandemic and after the pandemic, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but we truly believe that we are in time. We're in time so we can change our destiny as humans in our planet. So thank you very much on behalf of the Birds Museum in Mexico, for all the people working in the Birds Museum of Mexico, this invitation that the Environment of the Americas did for us to present the Museum of Birds in Mexico, okay? So I'm going to step away. I'm going to step out to the garden so you can get to know, so you can find the garden. Let me remind you that we're in the city of Saltillo. And this is the way our garden looks like. This is how it looks. I want to introduce, remember our colleagues here, they were actually in charge of the tour. We have Jael, Massimo, and Alarica. And here We have our colleagues from the audio visual department. Monica, who actually made it possible for us to share with you today this tour of the bird museums in Mexico. We can see here. Do you recognize it? It is a northern road runner. We have this tree when it is a little residential area for birds, the little houses. So birds can arrive here so they can eat and they can rest. Right in the back, we have a drinking fountain for hummingbirds. Here in Saltillo, Saltillo has a beautiful weather. We have very, very nice this is a common a barn owl. You're gonna actually take pictures with our road runner of this barn owl, as we saw at first. All right, we have a couple of minutes left, I guess, so you can get to know a little bit to know a little more of the garden of this museum. We are open. We open Tuesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Here we have some birds, alive birds. You can see this is a white peacock. Have some golden birds are here. What is a golden pheasant? These were donated. They were they were not good in terms of health, and we as a museum were able to take care of those so they could be here with us. Moving on. This is the exit. We are moving towards the exit of the museum. I would like it to be outside of the museum. There is a golden eagle sculpture, a large, it's really, really cool. I'll say that it's one of the species that has been photographed the most. Hopefully we can have one more minute so we can go there. I'm gonna run for you guys to see it. As you can see, we have a gift shop over here, and where you can buy a souvenir. It is amazing. And moving on. Okay, we are here. This is the outside of the Birds Museum. This one over here, this is the sculpture of a golden eagle, and this is our symbol. Look at this. This building is beautiful. It's a beautiful building, and not because I work here, but this is an amazing building. Look at it. We are in the city of Saltillo, Coahuila, in Mexico. We would like to thank you for your invitation, for the Environment of the Americas invitation, and thank you. Thank you very much for visiting the Birds Museum in Mexico. Thank you very much, Samuel. The tour has been extraordinary. We were actually very, very on time. Thank you very much. Hopefully we can have the opportunity to be here with you. And well, we have amazing speeches and all the information that you share with us. And thank you very much for sharing this part of Saltillo, Coahuila in Mexico. This has been amazing. Thank you very much. It is quite beautiful that in spite of this pandemic, we are able to meet this pandemic and this amazing species. Hopefully we can see this in in the wild, many of them that we haven't been able to see. Thank you very much. These are amazing, amazing species, and you take care of that a lot, and you love that place, and we can see that you actually love that place. Thank you, really, really. Thank you very much for being part of this event of the Day of Migratory Birds, and let's keep on celebrating birds. Thank you, Samuel, and everybody in the museum. It has been extraordinary. Goodbye. Bye.
Listo, ¿no? Ahora sí, vámonos con unas pizzas.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Samuel, to his team
Someone
at the Bird Museum.
Hopefully we all have.
I wish we would have a bird museum in
our
each of the
countries.
countries we're from. And now we are going to move on to the next session. I want to invite Laura to.
All right, so our next session is going to be a guide to the bird song, Saving Birds Through Music. So this one sounds really interesting and exciting and fun. So we will hear from the team behind A Guide to the Bird Song, an innovative project uniting the song of endangered birds with music. A series of regionally focused albums aim to raise awareness about the situation of threatened species, as well as raising funds for their protection. So we're going to hear from Robin Perkins, who is the founder of the project, and also from two of the participating artists, Barrio Lindo and Dai Life. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your names. And also from Lisa Sorensen from Birds Caribbean, who was also one of the partners from Volume 2. So Lisa is also the executive director of Birds Caribbean, which is a nonprofit dedicated to the conservation of Caribbean birds and their habitats. So a lot of activities that Birds Caribbean do, and I think we'll be hearing from them later on today in one of these sessions. So tune in and listen on to this presentation. So I'll pass it on to the presenters.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So yeah, we'll just wait to get everybody on. So I'm Robin Perkins, and we're going to we have half an hour, I think, and we're going to talk about A Guide to the Bird Song and give you a brief introduction to the project and hear from some of the artists. So I think we're just going to start with a kind of a round of introductions for everybody. So my name is Robin Perkins. I'm originally from the UK, and I'm a music producer and environmentalist and based in Paris. So I'll pass it over to Agustin.
Hi, hello, I'm Agustin. Barrio Lindo is my artist name. I'm from Argentina, and I'm part of Chica Chica, and also participate in the first volume of A Guide to the Bird Songs of South America.
So Lisa, should we go over to you? I think Diego is with us as well, but I can't see him on screen. But maybe Lisa, you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll get Diego.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Lisa Sorensen, Executive Director of Birds Caribbean, and met Robin a couple of years ago when he invited us to be part of this project, and we're thrilled that we're able to present this session to you today.
Fantastic. And Diego, hola.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Diego. My artistic name is Life, and I'm participating in this volume 2 for the bird songs.
So I think I'm going to start by giving a short presentation on the project just for a few minutes, and then we're going to kind of hear from the two artists and about the whole creative process, and then hear from Lisa about the impact, and then share a little bit about the next steps. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen. So yeah, A Guide to the Bird Song is a project that is quite simple in terms of describing it. We basically take the Song of Endangered Birds, mix it with musicians from a certain region, and ask them to make an original piece of music using and inspired by the bird song, with the aim of raising awareness and raising funds for nature conservation. So the concept is quite simple: to use music to help save and raise awareness about endangered bird species from a specific region. So far we've done 2 volumes. The first one was in 2015, I think now, which seems like a long time ago. And that focused on South America. So it's called A Guide to the Birdsong of South America. So we took 10 endangered or threatened bird species and paired them with 10 artists from the region, including Agustin Barriolindo, and asked each of them to create a track. So the first volume was focused on South America. And then 2019, we moved on to the second volume to focus on Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. So we used the same idea, the same concept, 10 species from the region and 10 artists to interpret the bird song and make a track using the song. So these are some of the species that we featured. So basically we chose birds which were listed as critically endangered, or vulnerable, and ones that had existing song, and each artist chose their bird to work with and made the track inspired by their species. So these are some of the artworks to kind of represent the bird species. And the album is then released digitally, released on vinyl, released on t-shirts, and 100% of the profits go to conservation initiatives. So it's a non-profit project which is focused on giving money to bird conservation to organizations like Birds Caribbean. So over the 2 albums, so far we have raised $50,000 US, which has been split between these 6 organizations. So we had 3 from South America, Aves Argentinas, Fundación Yocotoco, and Corporación Salvamontes in Colombia. And then 3 from Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. 1 in Costa Rica, 1 in Mexico, the Chori Conservación, and Birds Caribbean across the Caribbean region. So each organization had a very concrete project that we helped fund with the album. And I think now hopefully we should be able to see a little video to give you an idea of some of the music from volume 1. So I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully we can play the video.
Robin, I have 2 videos. Which one would you like me to play? The intro?
If we could play the volume 1, it should be called. Yep, that's the one. So yeah, that was just a little taste of some of the music. So that was Lula Cruz's song, who interpreted the Nicéphorus wren from Colombia. And I think now we will speak to Agustin a little bit, who also featured on the first volume. And he interpreted the Cappuccino Pecho Blanco, which is a very special name, a very good name. And I think maybe we can hear some of the audio of Agustin's track first, and then Agustin can talk us through how he made the track and his relationship with the bird. We can turn it down a little bit, or so it's just a snippet of the track, but I'll let Agustin tell you all about it.
Okay, so I had the opportunity to participate in the first volume of the project and choose Cappuccino Pecho Blanco. It's a small bird from littoral region and north of Buenos Aires, where I'm from. First, I like the bird song itself, and then I read a little bit that is only or mostly a daylight bird. So I try to generate like a daylight scenario for this bird song, with some happy sounds, because that is what the bird song referred to me as first. So I try to do a happy song, a happy mood with some daylights and using a little bit the field recording and then just playing around.
And did you, this is an interesting for me as well. Did it change how you see birds?
Yeah, mostly how I listen birds. Maybe now I pay more attention about what the bird sings. And also now I can recognize this particular bird when I'm in the countryside in Buenos Aires. So it's actually very cool.
And did you? I mean, maybe it's a long time ago, right? 2014 feels like a long time ago. But do you remember the process of how you made the track?
Yeah, I start with the bird song itself and analyzing a little bit what was it doing, and then I try to try to create something, a synthesizer vibe, like quite similar. From then on, I start to produce and play with this bird song. But yeah, the very beginning was the bird song itself.
Yeah, so Agustin was part of Agustin is one of the co-founders of Shika Shika, which is a label that is now putting out the Birdsong project, and also an artist. So he's now been involved in the running of the second volume. So we migrated after South America and the success. We migrated north to Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. And then Diego, who we also have with us, was on the second album. And maybe we can play the video, because we have a video from the second album as well, which is not of Diego's track, but of the Garifuna Collective track. So maybe we could play a little bit of the second video, and then we'll go to Diego and hear about his bird and his track. Yeah, so that was The Black Cat Bird by Garifuna Collective, which was on the second volume of Guide to the Bird Song, an album which also featured Life, who is my neighbor in Paris, but originally not from Paris, from somewhere far away. So maybe Diego, you tell us a little bit about your participation in the project from with your Guatemalan bird and how the process was for you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's nice having this chat with all of you. And yeah, my bird was the Colino celado. It's a endangered species from South Mexico and north of Central America. It's quite a special species, I would say, because it's like a not flying bird. Man. Right.
And how was the because your song is quite different, and if people are watching, I kind of go and check out the album, listen to the song, and Diego's is much more a kind of upbeat song. And so it'd be interesting to know how was it for you to use the bird song? How did you use it? What was the kind of inspiration behind the track?
Well, when I chose the sample, because we had like 3 different ones choose from. So of course we had like a picture from each one. But at the moment of choosing the sample, I kind of close my eyes, so I just kind of flow with the song from the bird, and then I just put it into my computer and starting to playing around with it, like just looping or pitching it up or pitching it down. And the sample was really the sparkle which started the song. So then I just went on putting some more ingredients or instruments, but I just really flowed with the atmosphere from the energy from the bird song.
And maybe the same question I asked Agustin, did it change? Do you hear and listen to birds more after the project? Did it change how you see birds or conservation?
Yes, of course, because I think we always are used to see how beautiful birds are, but sometimes we forget the richness of their environment and also this great world from the bird songs. You know, like there's so many different birds, so many different songs, and it was like a great experience to have a look deep into this world with this project, which was focused on the South America in the beginning, and you can see how it's a big world and it's worth exploring. So yes.
Fantastic. And so maybe on that note, we'll bring in Lisa, who I think is still with us. So yeah, the concept behind the Guide to the Bird Song, like we said from the beginning, was to use music and art and creativity to talk about the threats to endangered birds and to also raise awareness and raise funds for their conservation. And we partnered with organizations such as Birds Caribbean. And so, yeah, maybe we can hear from Lisa a little bit about the partnership, how we work together, and where the money from the project will go.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Robin. It's really a pleasure to be part of the project. So yes, we are going to use the funds to benefit a project that we have called the Caribbean Birding Trail. And I do have a couple of slides that I could show you. Let me just start screen sharing. All right, I hope you're seeing that. Hold on a second. Let me go back to the first slide. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, we had been thinking a lot about the role of music and culture recently. And actually, I'm just going to tell you quickly about a book that we're publishing. And a little bit about Birds Caribbean. We're a nonprofit regional organization, and we're dedicated to conserving birds and nature throughout all the islands of the West Indies through raising awareness and promoting science and empowering our local partners. And so for those of you who might not be familiar with us, the Caribbean is a biodiversity hotspot. There's actually like 171 endemic birds in the region found nowhere else in the world. And what we do is we aim to build capacity to do science and outreach and education. We have a lot of educational materials that we produce. And right now we have ongoing our Endemic Bird Festival. And the theme is Sing, Fly, Soar Like a Bird. So of course, this session today is perfect to fit that theme. We're celebrating a lot of bird songs. We're sharing an endemic bird of the day with videos and bird songs featuring their songs. They all have incredible diversity of songs. And I'm sure the musicians would be really good at going out into the woods and picking up those songs and learning quickly to identify birds just by their song, which is of course a very helpful cue to bird ID. And so as you get into birds, you learn more about their songs and can appreciate how unique they are and helpful for identification. And so for those folks that live in the Caribbean, you're very, very lucky. For those of us that don't get to live there and visit, it's a fabulous place to visit. And it's made up of the Bahama Islands, the Greater Antilles Islands, and then the Lesser Antilles Islands, these kind of three main regions. And all these different islands really share a common history. Originally, they were populated by indigenous people, the Kalinago and Taino tribes, and they were then colonized by Europeans, starting with Spain. This led to, sadly, many of these indigenous people being wiped out. And with agriculture starting up, the slave trade happened. And so a lot of people were brought in from West Africa. Finally, thankfully, slavery was abolished, and many of these countries in the Caribbean now have independence. But what's really cool is throughout all this history, even dating back to the original people in the Caribbean, birds have played a really important role in cultures and beliefs and superstitions. And so there's African dances where, for example, the skirt of the woman dancing represents the wings of a bird and flying off and escaping slavery. There's lots of beliefs related to birds, and birds often serve, of course, as national heroes, as symbols. The Jocko parrot or redneck parrot in Dominica, the nickname Jocko was named after a runaway slave who later provided refuge for other runaway slaves and led maroon raids on plantations. So here's a fun example of songs related to birds. These are school kids singing a traditional folk song called Chi-Chi Bud. I'll just play a few seconds of it. But it was used by laborers in the fields to keep their minds off of difficult work. And it's like a call and response song. Anyway, that's in Jamaica. It gives you a taste for it. You can also find that on the web, on YouTube. So we're just publishing a book today about cultural myths and tales and beliefs about birds. So I encourage you to head to our website. This is hot off the press. It's just going up on our website later today. So check back for that. And then just getting back to the Shika Shika album project, a big thanks to Robin and all the musicians for doing this project. It's really incredible. And the funds are going to benefit our Caribbean Birding Trail. And this is a project that seeks to raise awareness about all the endemic and incredible birds that you can see in the Caribbean, and engage visitors and locals in learning about them and enjoying them. And of course, more bird tourism. And so for the last few years, we've been doing a lot of guide training workshops and building capacity for more guides to know about sharing local birds with people. And so far we've done 6 training workshops. And this is an example of some of the guides that we trained in Cuba several years ago. So what we have found is that the workshop has been really successful in getting guides excited about showing birds as part of their other tours as well. You know, they might have sort of taken birds for granted, but through the workshop, they learned that Caribbean birds there's many endemics and they're very special, and people will come to your country and pay money to have you go out birding and see your local birds. So often it's a situation of birds being taken for granted, as we often do, you know, wherever we live. So we're excited about being able to do our next guide training workshop, and with the funds that are provided from this album. So we just want to say thanks again to Robin for helping us to have this impact and to stay in touch with us and follow the project.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure working with you and Birds Caribbean. Also I think for a lot of people who support the project, to know where the money's going and to have that transparency is really nice. And it's been a fantastic collaboration for us as well. So I think I'd like to say thank you to everybody for being very concise. We're like super on time, which is nice in half an hour. It's a very big project with a lot to talk about, I think. So to keep it to half an hour is not easy. I just have, I'm going to share just a couple of last slides, just to say, if you want to listen to the albums, if you want to learn a bit more about the project, let me just see if I can share my screen. And we have some exciting news about where next, because we have, of course, done South America, and we've done Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. So it's where next. So first you can go to chicaschica.org and find out about the project, read a bit more, listen to the album, or find it on Bandcamp. Listen to both albums, sorry. And then the next exciting news is that we're migrating east, which is very topical for World Migratory Bird Day. We're migrating to Western Africa for the next volume. So we did South America, Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. And volume 3 is going to be a guide to the birdsong of Western Africa, which for bird lovers and for music lovers is quite an exciting prospect. So there'll be more on that later in the year, and the album will be coming out in 2022. But just wanted to give this as the exclusive reveal of the next chapter of the Birdsong project. So yeah, I'd like to say just thank you to Environment for the Americas for the invitation, and to Lisa, who also facilitated us sharing today. And hopefully, yeah, go check out the album, listen to some of the songs, and get in touch. And thanks to Diego and Agustin and Lisa for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
The album.
Thank you, Chica Chica. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing. It was fascinating. It's the first time I'm hearing about Chica Chica. And it's really beautiful what you all are doing. So just keep it up. And we had some persons asking where they can find your music. So thank you for sharing that. And let's just keep celebrating birds. It's really nice. So thank you so much for sharing this presentation with us. All right.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Laura. Now we're gonna move to the next presenters. World Migratory Bird Day is celebrated by different kind of people around the globe. And one of the major contribution to education and citizen science programs around the globe are bird watchers, passionate expert or people who are starting see birds for first time. And now we have two presenters that gonna show you how to involve with bird conservation around the globe. For first time, we are happy to have here Penny Appleton and Tim Appleton, founders of the Global Birding Initiative, and we love to see all the information they give us about how to get involved in bird watching field. Thank you, Penny, and thank you, Tim, for being here with us in Bird Day Live first day, and we really appreciate all the information you're gonna share with us. Please introduce yourself and share with the public all the information you have to the public. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Manuel. It's absolutely amazing to be here when you think we are thousands of miles away in England, in fact, in England's smallest little county. But it's a very important county because this is where so much good conservation work has happened over many years. But first of all, I really want to thank the Environment for the Americas for inviting Penny and I to be part of your events, and particularly to Miguel and to Susan as well, because you know, it's a wonderful way in which we're all gradually building up an extraordinary community of bird watchers from literally every corner of the planet. But if you can bear with me, and Penny can bear with me for a few minutes, I will just explain a little bit about how I really got into bird watching and into the environment, because I don't have a degree as such. I have a lot of passion, and I believe this is so important when you love the natural world as I do. But my background goes back many, many years. As you can see, I'm pretty ancient, but being ancient means I've got quite a lot of experience. And my experiences started way back with a gentleman that many of you may have never heard of, but is an incredibly important man for conservation. Sir Peter Scott, who was the founder of the Worldwide Fund for Nature Conservation, WWF. He, in fact, if you've ever seen the poster, he did the panda. He was a great artist as well. But he was my mentor. And I think everyone needs a mentor. And Peter always accepted that people should come first, because once you get people on your side, then the wildlife, the birds, would inspire them to take up either a career or, for many of us, just, of course, a hobby, watching the wonderful birds that live around our countryside. Now, I was very lucky many years ago to be invited to take part in setting up a reserve called Rutland Water. Now, this is a huge reservoir that was being constructed, and in some ways, a word that's currently being used globally, rewilding. This was probably the biggest rewilding project ever in Europe, because we were taking this huge reservoir and turning it into a global site for migratory birds, particularly for ducks, geese, and swans. So much so that it became really important for birds, particularly in the winter months. And I was very delighted to see how the numbers of species grew. It became a Ramsar site, a special protection area under European legislation. And all the time, as well as of showing people birds, we were, of course, educating young people. Thousands of young children would come to the reserve, be taken round. So as that developed, I suddenly saw an opportunity to actually bring more people, not just from England, but from further afield. And I was lucky enough to, with a colleague of mine, to set up the Bird Fair. Now, you may or may not have heard of the Bird Fair. Many of the birding community will have heard of it, of course, because it became the world's largest event and inspired people to set up bird fairs in literally hundreds of countries around the world. Several in the Caribbean, several in South America, North America, and of course, Africa and many other countries. But what it did was to raise money. And this is when I started getting interested in more global conservation, particularly with BirdLife International, of course, who have over 120 partners around the world. So with those partners, we were able to identify conservation projects that needed vital funds. And over the years, we've raised a total of over £40 million that has been used to do some wonderful conservation jobs. But another aspect of the Bird Fair was to bring so many small companies from around the world, particularly again from South America, from Central America, the Caribbean, to be able to show their businesses, to show people that if they travel to these wonderful countries like Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador, and then into South America, they would see these fantastic birds. And by people going to see them, this was building up ecotourism. People were able to say, right, don't cut the forest down, don't drain the lake, don't pollute the waterways, because I'm prepared to come across the world to see your wonderful birds. And it had made a massive impact. But also, of course, when you're showing people birds, people often like to see them quite closely. So a bird species, the osprey, Pandion haliatus, which of course you get in North and South America as well, a different species, but crazy, I don't know why, it looks the same to me. And we reintroduced the osprey back to England after an absence of 150 years by bringing them down from Scotland, where a few were hanging on. So you can see my background was very much showing people birds, loving birds, but trying, as it says behind me, global birding was an opportunity for us to think beyond Rutland Water, basically to bring in the countries around the world. And so we have a video which I'd like to show. And Miguel, if you could show that video now, that would be really helpful.
Yesterday when I was there in the eco park looking for the masked duck, it got me thinking about places where I can take part in an upcoming birding event, which I know that Tim, you'll be keen to talk about because it's your event. The Global Bird Weekend is fast approaching, I believe the weekend of the 17th and 18th of October. This is your new project, the thing you're very excited about. So please tell us, what is the Global Birding Weekend?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited about this. It's really bringing together my whole sort of passion for people and wildlife, because if we're going to go forward anywhere and be successful in terms of conservation and conserving, we need to have people on board. So in order to launch this, I thought, well, again, we need to get people out in the field. We need to get people engaging with the birds that they're now growing to love. And so I came up with the idea of, well, why don't we just get people going out for a whole weekend? Why not? But how do you actually then record? So I thought, well, I've got great friends with eBird, Chris Wood and Ian Davies from eBird in Cornell University. Mm-hmm. And so I spoke to them. They said, well, this sounds great. We're actually doing a similar event and have done for a year or two called the October Big Day. And I said, well, look, can we partner? Can we get together on this? Absolutely. They have been amazing. So we said, right, well, they only do one day. We're going to do 2 days, and we're going to link together with you guys. And they're absolutely fine. And now already we've got 57 countries from across the planet already registered. And every day, wow, 2 or 3 new countries are coming in. We've got thousands of people. What we're really going to be doing is having a most wonderful weekend. We want it to be fun. We want teams to take part. Already, our partners like Swarovski are going to be setting up a team. Rock Jumper Holidays are setting up teams. But the great thing about you guys, you can set up your team. Why not have a Birders Channel TV program? Because you can go out, Chris, Diego can go out, but you don't have to be together. You can form your teams. And so long as you input that information of the birds you see around Colombia, you've got a great opportunity. Make a film of this. This could be a wonderful opportunity to do something for the new channel. So I challenge you. I challenge you here now. I challenge you here now.
Challenge accepted. I was just about to say to Diego.
So why not? Why not? Where are you going to be, Chris? Actually, where do you want to go with?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to suggest that we should set up a Birders show. Global Bird Weekend team here, and we can go out around the Bogota Savannah, look for Bogota rail, maybe Apollinar's wren, hopefully the masked duck if they're still there at that time, get some of those endemic species in. That's an important set of species we can represent here. And Diego, you can go out around your area. You have 2 endemics in your garden, right?
Yeah, I could just go around my place, and actually that's what we are doing, red-bellied grackles and Colombian chachalacas, chestnut wood quails. And one of the days, I'm also going to be part of one of the sub-teams from Swarovski for a live transmission. Actually, Tim, where are you going to go birding on that day? Is it Rutland? Is it your home?
It has to be Rutland. There's nowhere else. We've got to be tied to our social media all day long, but
and to the roots.
We're calling ourselves the Rutland Lockdowners because, of course, we were locked down. We could only look out of our window.
That was a fun time we had making that show. And just to go back over, that was October's event, last October, which actually ended up being a record-breaking event because so many people went out, looked at birds, enjoyed birds, and marked them down on eBird. That was amazing. So what you can do this time for this event is to also join up. If you just give me a moment and hopefully get on the website, which is always a problem. So basically, if you visit our website, which is www.globalbirding.org, then you can see exactly how to register. And teams can register until tomorrow lunchtime. You've got about 12 hours left to register. And the individual registration carries on. The eBird account can be easily set up, and then you can take it out with your phone and register as you go. Or you can just go home enjoying the birds and marking down when you get back home, looking at your photos, enjoying the rest of the day, and chatting about it with the friends you've been out with. So hopefully you can then spend your time seeing what everyone else has seen over that course of the day. Sorry, I'm having trouble screen sharing.
Sure.
So if you can join up, that would be fantastic. You can also make contributions, if possible, to a team. And then you can also think about setting up a team for another occasion. But it'd be great to welcome as many people as possible, from children. We really want to get schools involved in the future. And hopefully there'll be plenty of young people taking up the reins for birding in their communities, that we can happily say that it's now over to you, because we're kind of working towards that. And we really want more people to get involved generally. It's not a specialist thing, because birds are around everybody. So anybody can join in. Back over to Tim.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is even more exciting, of course, for this event on Saturday is that for the first time, we're working in association with World Migratory Bird Day. So that's a really exciting prospect for us going forward for the future. Hopefully a good prospect for World Migratory Bird Day as well. But to have so many people who are key players in the birding world working together just shows exactly what Penny and I had hoped would happen, way back last year when we launched Global Birding. To date, Penny has spent an awful lot of time trying to target countries that are perhaps more remote, perhaps don't have quite the same sort of facilities that some of the more modern countries, if you like, have, but have amazing birds. So we've targeted all sorts of places. And I think what I love about our global birding is that, in fact, it's bringing countries together whose political boundaries will often be purely closed to anybody except for the birds who are migrating through them. For example, we have Russia, we have Iran, we have, hopefully, North Korea and South Korea, countries like China, Myanmar, countries that we often think of as being so remote and almost impossible to access freely, are coming together to join in on Global Big Day. And I'm delighted to say, coming back to the Caribbean and through to South America, just to give you an idea so far of the 152 different teams that have managed to register. We have Honduras. In fact, Honduras was the very first team to register. And we have El Salvador, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, Guatemala, Nicaragua. And then from the Caribbean, or Caribbean as we say in the UK, we have the Bahamas, Grenada, the Cayman Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and Anguilla. And it's absolutely incredible, I believe, that so many people, want to take part in Global Big Day. So thank you to those. And of course, going further south, we have in South America, we have Ecuador, Argentina, Bolivia, Guyana, Venezuela, Bolivia, Colombia, Brazil, and Chile. So countries, again, for us, so far away, but will on Saturday be part of this amazing event. I hope many people who are watching this or will see it later on YouTube or whatever channels you use it on will be inspired as I was all those years ago and as Penny is now and the people that she's inspiring. We're a great team ourselves, but to have that influence with people over the world is quite, for us, humbling, I believe. And when we go forward later in this year, in October, we'll be having our third event. Goodness me, time flies. We'll be having Global Big Day, a Global Bird Weekend. Again, linking in with Swarovski, with eBird, with BirdLife International, and of course, with World Migratory Bird Day. So many thanks for listening. I'm very happy if there are anybody in the audience who want to ask a few questions, please do so, and we're here to help.
Thank you, Tina and Penny. We're gonna wait until the question. We're gonna present it and then all the question to both of you. Next presenter is Colin Hunt. He's from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. He's the program manager of eBird, and we are very excited to know all the knowledge he have about technology tools that help migratory birds around the world. So, Colin, we are here. Thank you so much to join us today in Bird Day Live for World Migratory Bird Day. You can start introducing yourself and share the presentation. Thank you very much to be here. And after your presentation, we will wait for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's really exciting to be a part of this. This weekend is going to be such a wonderful celebration of the birding community, and it's just so impresses me the power of the birding community and the importance of that the birding community to just the knowledge of birds and for our environment. What I'm going to do is provide a kind of a quick overview of eBird and Merlin and how people can use them to learn more about birds and contribute to conservation. But first, I just want to start off a little bit just about me. My background is indeed, I'm part of the eBird team and Merlin team at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. But currently right now, I'm not up in Ithaca. The lab, because of the pandemic, has not been open. And so I've been working remotely on the coast of Texas. It's close to my family, but also it's an amazing place to experience bird migration. And one of the nice things about working remotely on the Texas coast is that after work every day, we can go out to the beach and we can see what's coming through and actively see migration coming through. And every time we go out after work to the beach or on the weekend, we do an eBird checklist. And that eBird checklist is a list of what we saw, the species we saw, and how many we saw while we were out at that place and at that time. And the amazing thing is that people around the world are doing the same thing. People have uploaded 75 million checklists of the birds that they've seen at different places around the world at different times. And this is a map of all those checklists. Where it's brighter, you can see there's more lists, but there are lists in every country around the world. This is what really blows me away, is the amount of participation in every country around the world to document the birds that they're seeing around them. And the amazing thing about this, when you look at the numbers, it provides kind of a sense of the power of the birding community. 660,000 people have contributed to the database, very close to 1 billion observations from 10.8 million locations, documenting over 10,400 species of birds. Not only that, but people have uploaded over 27 million photos and over 1 million sound recordings. This is an amazing resource. And one of the questions is, what do we do with this? And one of the most important things we do is we build tools for birders. By participating in eBird, you have this suite of tools for yourself to keep track of what you've seen, where, and how, and also what you haven't seen. And so this is my page for what I've seen this year, how many checklists I've uploaded, how many species I've documented with photos and audio. But I can also go, and you can find that at my eBird. You can also look at what birds you haven't seen. And this is great. So for example, I can see, I'm in Galveston County right now. I can see what are the most common species that I haven't seen this year. And I can find out where they are, where they have been seen, and try and think about what habitats I might not have experienced or looked in. And so again, these are tools for the birders to help them explore and learn about birds. But we also provide profiles that allow people to share that information with others. And so this can be a public profile to show what you've seen in different regions, highlight your latest photos, and tell your story. But eBird doesn't just have profiles for people, we also have profile pages for birds. And for every species, you can go to that species and link to all the information that we have that the community has generated. See a map of all the observations, see how many observations you have, or how many observations with photos. For any region, you can see how its abundance changes over time, explore the photos and the sounds. And this is all brought together by the birding community. We have a number of different tools to explore the data, and I don't have time to go into all of them, but I really hope that you'll have a chance to go to ebird.org, explore, and explore. You can explore eBird data by region, or explore by species, or you can go to the Macaulay Library and look at all the media and sounds for a species or in a region. In this case, this is a search for fan-tailed warbler. And these are, you can explore all the photos for the species, listen to the sounds, watch the videos. And this is a great tool for anybody, whether you're uploading data or not, to learn about a bird that you might be interested in. However, the issue with all of these tools on ebird.org is that they don't help people when they need that information most. And that is when they're in the field, oftentimes trying to identify a bird. And that's why we've been working on the Merlin project. Merlin is a mobile app that helps you identify birds when you're in the field. It's free to download and it works offline. The way Merlin Bird ID works is that it helps you filter the birds to the birds at a specific location. And so it uses eBird data to tell you what birds are found near you at a given location and date. And then it provides photos, sounds, and identifying text to help you identify those birds. This is an example of a species account that provides text on how to identify it, as well as photos of different plumages, in this case, juvenile and adult. If male and female are different, we'll provide examples of that. We also provide sound recordings and spectrograms that allow you to visualize the sound as you listen to it to help you learn sounds of the birds that you're trying to identify. With Merlin Bird ID, we have a bird ID tool that uses 5 questions to filter the potential birds down to the most likely possibilities to help people who may not know what kind of bird they're looking at identify that bird. And this can be a really powerful tool, especially for beginning birders. I remember when I started birding and I opened a bird guide and saw 800 species, and I was like, how am I going to identify these birds? Well, we use these five questions of where, when, the size of the bird, the colors of the bird, and what was the bird doing to help filter that list and focus birders on the most likely species that they're looking at. We also have a photo ID tool, and this is a complete product of all the 27 million photos that people have uploaded. We've used those photos in collaboration with different universities to develop this photo ID tool that will automatically identify birds in a photo. In this case, I uploaded this picture of a sandpiper and gave it the location and the date, and it told me that it suggested that it was a pectoral sandpiper. This tool has only gotten stronger and more accurate with all the photos that people are uploading. And finally, we have the Explore Birds tool, which allows you to sort by any location and date, and allows you to explore the birds that you might see at that location. And this is quite useful, especially when you're going to a new location. You can look and see what are the most common species found there, and you can see how their abundance changes over time with bar charts. And again, this is only possible with the contributions of the birding community in that area. So Merlin is a tool that we provide to birders, but we also have an entire page devoted to the use of eBird data for research and conservation. People can download data for different research and conservation projects. They can download the raw data. And we're also working on other data products to inform conservation. For example, this is an abundance map created based on eBird data of the fork-tailed flycatcher for every week of the year. And it shows how that you have this really interesting migration pattern where one population is staying up in the north of South America and another one is doing this clockwise rotation around South America over the course of the year. This is a data product that we are going to be updating annually, and as well as expanding to additional species. And the cool thing is each year, as more people add more data to the eBird database, then these kind of data products are only going to get better and more accurate. In the last year, we've expanded these data products to species on a global to the global range of species. And so in this case is a black kite. And one thing you'll notice is that you see large gray areas that aren't included in the model. These are areas where we don't have enough eBird data in order to support the prediction. But each year, as we get more data in the database, we'll be able to expand the area where we can make a prediction on the abundance of these species. These models can be a valuable tool for conservation decision-making in different regions. And one example of how this type of modeling of bird abundance has been valuable has been in the regulation of wind turbines in the United States and their impact on eagles. These models have helped policymakers prioritize what areas they need to focus on for doing environmental impact assessments on the impact of wind turbines on eagles when building new wind turbines. This is just one example, and we look forward to seeing how eBird can inform conservation efforts in regions around the world. As mentioned before, this is only possible because of the power of the birding community and how large this community is around the world. And Global Big Day is an amazing way to celebrate that. And so we hope that everybody will be able to participate. I will be looking forward to participating here on the coast of Texas, going out to experience bird migration and sharing my observation as part of the Global Big Day on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Colin. You have another.
No, that's. I don't know if we have time for.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we are ready to end this session, but we have a lot of questions for Tina and Colin in our different platforms on Facebook, YouTube, and also we want to know, for example, Colin, what the theme of migratory bird means to you. We have this theme, seeing fly soar like a bird. What represent this theme for you? Very quickly, and then Tim can share the answer too.
What does, can you say that one more time? Can you ask the question one more time? I'm sorry, the sound.
Yeah, what the conservation theme of World Migratory Bird Day means to you? Seeing fly soar like a bird.
You know, to me, it makes me think about, again, the power of the community to really contribute and to knowledge about birds and empower our relationship with birds in a beneficial way.
Cool, thank you. For Tina and Penny, what did the conservation team represent for you?
I think the Sing Fly Soar, our whole ethos for this event has been birds unite our world. And that strapline has sat beautifully with all the people who've joined in, and we can't thank them enough. So we're singing from the rooftops and the birds are soaring and flying around the world. So we're just so happy that everyone's taken the trouble to join in and we could all celebrate World Migratory Bird Day, doing exactly what we all love doing.
Watching birds. Watching
Thank
birds.
you very much. And a last question for both. People are asking for the youngest users on eBird and the youngest teens in global birding. So you can share a little bit about that.
The youngest.
The youngest people, did you say, Miguel?
It was you,
Yeah,
you
the
were
youngest
very
the youngest team you have in
Okay. Well, just so you know, we have the youngest person we have who's actually registered is in your area, is in Grenada. And that's a 5-year-old. We have kids taking part with their families, which we love. And we also have a very young group in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a promotional group for promoting conservation in their area. So we are so happy. We've had to help them quite a bit, but that's what we're here to do. We just want to really include everybody.
I think that's fantastic.
Pulling the younger.
You know, I don't have information on the youngest participants, but I can say I think that is fantastic to hear about those young teams. You know, the only reason that I'm work at the Lab of Ornithology and that I am as involved in birding today is because I had mentors that took me out birding when I was young, and that is so important. And to me, it is so exciting to see so many active young birders around the world. And it is so important that we continue to support them because they really are the future and they're going to bring even better ideas to the table than we have.
And can I finish by saying in October this year, on October Big Day, we will be concentrating very much on education, on areas of the world where we believe exactly as our friend has said, that need this attention and need the help that we as experts can at least provide. So look out for the October Big Day and Global Bird Weekend.
Thank you very much for your time. Okay, for the rest of the public, wait for the next session. Is coming for the Hummingbird Workshop and Women's in Conservation leaders too. So many activity for the rest of the day. Enjoy World Migratory Bird Day during Bird Day Live. Thank you very much.